вітаю нашого волі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі.
Співаємо разом. Хто?
Дякую вам, дуже дякую.
А до Херсона повернулася весна, ти одягнула вишиванку і намисто, відкрила пляшку недешевого вина. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, відкрила пляшку недешевого вина. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, а до Херсона повернулася весна. І синьо-жовтий прапор огортає місто, маленькі вулиці знов сповнені життя. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, маленькі вулиці знов сповнені життя. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, а до Херсона повернулася весна. Хоч осінь за вікном давно ганяє листя, і змиє дощ все, що залишила війна. На площі знов лунає українська пісня.
Разом! І змиє дощ все, що залишила війна.
На площі знов лунає українська пісня, а до Херсона повернулася весна. Все, що робили ми, наповнюється змістом, поклали воїни за це своє життя. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, поклали воїни за це своє життя. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, поклали воїни за це своє життя. На площі знов лунає українська пісня, в Херсоні знов лунає українська пісня, в Херсоні знов лунає українська пісня.
Есть.
The leaf street army sends its regards.
everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 263 of the news. And man, is it another great day for Ukraine.
And is it or is it not, Matthew? Because believe it or not, everyone, this is something that the Ukrainians have decided to prove me wrong on again. Of course, one thing that we've always done on this channel is that we've always tried to say a little bit about what the Ukrainians will probably be doing in the future, and we usually put very realistic limitations on the Ukrainian armed forces and their abilities. And so, by that regard, we usually expect them to do incredibly well, but not going to the moon and back. But the Ukrainians have decided that my somewhat realistic expectations for them are too unrealistic, as there is now video of the Ukrainian armed forces crossing the Dnipro River overnight. There's actual video evidence of it. Let me take y'all to that right now. We're not going to sit here and talk too much about anything. We'll get to the song that was played in the intro in just a second, because I've seen a lot of people love that one. But let's check out this video of the Ukrainian Special Forces crossing the Dnipro River overnight as missiles flew overhead. And so, here's the video. When you see them crossing the Dnipro River, missiles flying right over them. And these special forces, in the 6-second clip, are crossing from one side of the river to the other. It's somewhere south of the Novikhovka Dam. We don't know where. But it was quite a sizable group. You can see here in the outline, there's one rib, there's a second one, they're on a third one, there's a fourth one. It's quite a large group, and each of these ribs appear to be carrying about 8 to 10 guys. So there's about 40 Special Forces troops that are going to be dropped off on the other side of the Dnipro River bank. And for all we know, this could be an early attempt by the Ukrainians to create a foothold to then begin the offensive still in the Kherson area. If that is the case, this is unbelievable. And at this point, I'm going to say this. I would say that I wouldn't believe it. But if the Ukrainians have taught us anything over the past 32 hours, it's that nothing is out of their reach anymore. They can do just about anything. It doesn't even seem like natural landmarks, barriers, and things like that are slowing them down anymore. They're just rolling through everything. And we're seeing right now special forces passing from one side of the river to the other to most likely set up a bridgehead so that way Ukrainian forces can start flooding across and continue the offensive in this area. And if that is the case, this is the craziest thing I have ever seen. Speaking of which, let's talk about what's been going on in the Dnipro River altogether in this area, because, of course, a lot of us, and of course this channel and a lot of members in the Lee Spring Army have been somewhat fearful that the Russians are going to blow up the Novikhovka Dam. Well, it turns out they did, and we got a video of what happened. The explosion was not as violent as we thought it would be. It appears that the Russians only blew up the road bridge, and they left the actual dam intact. And so, here's the video. We can see the dam's letting out water. We can see the currents down there, you know, the white frothy foam. And make sure, before we watch this explosion here, make sure to take note of that white frothy foam and the speed and rate at which it's moving throughout the whole video. And try and see if there's any change, because that lets us know if the dam was breached at all or not. And then all of a sudden, the whole entire screen gets covered in white light when you see a massive explosion occurring almost at the other end of the road bridge. One thing for certain, the Russians do not expect to ever be able to go back into Kherson, or otherwise they wouldn't be destroying these bridges. And that tells us how poorly off the Russians really are, is that they can't even chance the Ukrainians coming over to the other side and fighting around the bridgehead. They have to destroy entirely, so that way the pitifully conditioned Russian soldiers on the other end don't have to go into a firefight they cannot win or even fight anymore. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. And I've got to tell y'all, the whole entire area of Kherson once again is dominating the news tonight. The celebrations are still going on. There's been massive amounts of news and all kinds of nice stuff coming out of the Kherson area showing us what's been going on down there. But before we continue to cover the rest of that Kherson news, I have to move us into Russia real quick because, you know, like I said with the Novikhovka Dam, the Russian forces that are on the southern banks of the...
And real quick, Enforcer, OBS actually had a glitch, and nobody heard what you just said a moment ago, so could you replay that for just a moment?
And what clip was that? What am I replaying over again?
What is? Just say what you were talking about one more time. I don't think folks heard it.
What part in particular? Because I've been
I
talking.
have no idea.
So I would restart the whole stream, but it's been going on for 7 minutes now. So if you're talking about the bridge, if anyone could clarify what was said there. Let's see, the dam. Oh, okay, so it's the dam. So the Russians have blown up the road span of the bridge, and they've now moved to the southern side. So as far as we know, they're still in Novokakhovka as we speak. The thing is, however, is that by them blowing up the Novokakhovka dam, it shows us that they have no confidence whatsoever in ever pushing back into the northern banks of Kherson. And that tells us one thing: the Russians are never expecting to win this war now. It's all just a matter of attrition and trying to bleed out the Ukrainians and hope that they can hold on to something by the time the war comes to an end. And while I've been talking about that, and speaking of the incompetence and the poor quality of Russian forces in this area, it appears that our favorite nutty Russian propagandist has also picked up on this as well, and he's decided to put in a few words of his own. Specifically, he says that they need a different army. And so with that, here's the video. Also, real quick, Mandy, before we start this, I love how this guy is sitting here like he just watched the Russians get vaporized crossing the bridge, and then he starts his monologue. Like, he looks like what I would expect a Russian general to look like, seeing how poorly everything has gone down there. But with that, here's the video.
Необходимо нам осознать, что нужна другая.
A way to start off the whole thing. It's necessary for us to acknowledge that we need a different army. Oh my god, he just roasted the entire Russian armed forces.
Dang.
Man, way to start off. I believe that's actually against the law in Russia. But anyways, we're going to let it continue.
Армия. Под термином «другая» я имею в виду большая по размеру, которая способна закрыть всю протяженность линии фронта и вести полномасштабную войну на территорию Европы.
Oh, of course. It seemed a little bit positive at the start. It seemed like it'd make a little bit sense. We need a different army because it's getting its butt kicked. No. Instead, he's suggesting that they need a bigger army, same quality, just larger, so that way they can fight the whole of Europe, because they're winning the war right now, so why not fight everyone else too at the same time? You know, is there really anything for me to add here? I'm sure y'all can see the insanity of it. We're just going to let the video play.
Говорю еще раз, никто не отменял задачу. Демилитаризация, денацификация, нейтральный статус Украины, а главное, поставленное 15 декабря 2021 года, отодвинуть военную инфраструктуру НАТО к рубежам 98-99 годов. Это обозначает, что несмотря на пробуксовки кампании,
The stalling of the campaign, not the failure of the campaign, it's just the fact that the Russian army is taking their time winning the whole thing. That's what he's saying.
болезненные решения, тяжелые проблемы, которые выяснились и которые необходимо преодолевать железной рукой. Железной рукой. Заново. Открывая военные училища.
Wait a minute. He's saying that if they reopen military academies, maybe they can get the army in shape. But if I'm correct, I think all of the instructors from these military academies were already killed in the war. So who's going to be training these people at these military academies? Putin?
Заводы.
Yeah. He'd teach them right.
Наказав лжецов. Выгнав неумех.
Punishing liars. Well, why in the world is he not being punished right now? Man, why in the world did the audio just mute? Did you?
Умех.
Oh, they censored him?
Oh, they muted his mic?
Расстреляв трусов.
Oh, no,
Oh,
apparently.
the cuts.
И
Oh.
потакающий им вопящую сволоту в тылу привести в чувство.
Well, he sums up with that his mouth's moving and he's talking at a different time.
He's turned into Jackie Chan.
And also, is that a phone number I see at the top of the screen?
Is it? It looks like one. It looks like a Russian phone number. I wonder if we could call it. I would not call it. But let's go back to this, because this is a very interesting statement here, because I can't show y'all these videos on stream, but I'll tell y'all a little thing that I saw today. Let me skip forward a little bit, trying to find it. Here we go. Shooting cowards. Now, this is something that the Russians love to do, is they always love to just really kill anyone who stands in their way, even their own people, if that's the need. And I saw a video today, and y'all wouldn't believe, well, I'm sure y'all can believe it, because Russian atrocities are pretty severe, even the ones we were able to show on stream. I saw a video today, Matthew, and you know, I might be able to show it to you off stream if I can go and get it again, but it was of a Wagner soldier, a mercenary, who had been conscripted, well, yeah, I mean, involuntarily conscripted out of prison to go and fight in the Wagner unit. He decided that he would try and surrender as soon as he reached Ukraine to the Ukrainian armed forces and maybe even fight for them. The Wagner group found out about this and recorded themselves getting this guy's confession and then slamming a sledgehammer straight into his head on video, killing him.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't really think that this is something that they are going to be doing that's new. It looks like they're already doing that right now, from what I can tell. But, you know, this guy's got to live in a fantasy where the Russians and the Russian military are actually a nice group of people who don't do things like this by default. But with that, we're going to now round out this video again, let Jackie Chan finish off what he's saying there, since the voice and the mouth doesn't match up. But with that, you can already see that our top Russian propagandist isn't really happy with the way things have been going, and he's suggesting that they ought to have a whole new army, a bigger one, a grander one, a well-trained and well-equipped army. I just don't know where in the world they're going to get any of that stuff, because if they could already do that, why haven't they done that in Ukraine alone? But moving on to the next bit, of course, this is something always important to remember. When the Russians lose a war, it's not because their military sucks, or their government sucks, or people have been funneling the money out of the military and into their own pockets. No, no, no. And it's also not because the Ukrainian military is well-trained and far more capable than the Russian one on the field. No, no. The entire war is being lost because the United States, Washington, D.C. specifically, is controlling the entire world from behind the scenes. Everyone but Russia is under their control, and if they want to defeat Ukraine, they've got to destroy Washington, D.C. So let me show you a little demonstration that happened today, where some Russian citizens were calling for the destruction of Washington, D.C. and marching Russian soldiers all the way to the capital of the United States. And so with that, here's the video. He's not winning American Idol anytime soon.
Мы как мученики попадем в рай, они просто сдохнут!
Wait a minute, hang on. How in the world can he be a martyr and kill others? Isn't a martyr getting killed?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, I'm glad that they're already deciding that they will become martyrs, because I'm telling you, if they tried to pull off the little joke they're saying that they would do right here, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't even see an American soldier. They would just get hit by a Maverick or a JDAM or something from 30,000 feet up and become martyrs on the spot. So it's nice to know that they already have realistic expectations going into this thing, and I like how they say, we will go to heaven and they will just die. It's like, well, aren't you just dying too or something by that explanation? Anyways, with that, we're going to let it continue. The insanity gets better.
They're killing me.
They got a guy in a rocket costume walking in front of them.
I'll give him credit. That's better than I would have done if I made like a rocket like that.
Oh, wait a minute, Matthew. Look, you said Fate Dawn.
Don.
This man is a parody. Fate Dawn. Kill all of the Americans, Dawn. I'm telling you something. These people are delusional. If they think that they can even take on the United States, they can't even take on Ukraine. Imagine if they tried to take on Poland even, or Finland, or Sweden. They can't take on anyone. And these people are so delusional. They think they could come to America and actually face off against us. They can't, Dawn.
You noticed he's not calling it a Satan?
No, he's not. He's calling it the Sarmat, which I believe is the technical term for it. I've heard that phrase so many times now, it's getting annoying to me.
Well, just come over then.
Yeah, come on over.
Stop saying it.
Come on over then. Come on. And he's just repeating the same phrases over and over. They're showing the man in the silly costume again. And with that, that's the end of the video. And I don't know about you guys, but why not let them come over? Come on. I mean, like, can we really turn down such a request to be invited to Washington, D.C.? No, I don't think so. I think that they ought to come on over. They ought to try. Because, you know, there's an old proverb that goes around, if you mess around, you shall find out. And I believe that if they did mess around, they would find out. That's why the Russians, at the end of the day, unlike the United States, are merely posers. Because these people will go around saying this crap, but do you ever really see any of them actually carrying through on it? No. Do you ever see the Russian government ever actually carrying through on the threats they give out whenever we cross their lines? No, because while the Russians will say all this stuff and act like idiots in the streets, they won't ever cross that line because they know that once they do, it's a losing war. And if they're really honest with themselves, they would say that from the outset. They already have a propaganda saying, we need a different army because we can't take on the West with the one we have right now. And then you got the same goofballs in the street saying, let's go to Washington, D.C. and let's just, I don't know, take over America or something. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and you can see that the Russians are reacting quite well, very well, to the liberation of Kherson. And so we're now going to be moving back to Kherson and covering the news down here a little bit more. Because while we've seen that the Ukrainians are already crossing the river and the Russians destroyed the Novokakhovka crossing, they also were the ones that destroyed the Antonovsky crossing. We saw this on security camera footage in Kherson overnight. If the video loads. There we go. And so what y'all are about to see, and it's unbelievable actually, they put a lot of explosives on this bridge. They blew this thing up like the Lebanon explosion of, I believe it was 2019. And so with that, here's the video. This camera's looking in the direction of the bridge. There's the explosion. You see the mushroom cloud forming on the bridge right there. And that was the explosion, apparently, that took out pretty much half the bridge. So with that, that's the end of the video, and it's interesting to see that they were the ones to have blown it up. Of course, the Ukrainians also didn't really let it go without a harsh punishment over that same night. The Ukrainians were bombarding the thing literally until the sun rose the next day, and the Russians had actually completed their retreat. So it's interesting to see, once again, we're seeing that the Russians have no intentions whatsoever of crossing back into Kherson and trying to do anything over there to the matter of retaking the ground. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Antonovsky Bridge and all the way back down to the Dnipro River again to see that it wasn't really a smooth withdrawal either. The Ukrainians, of course, like I said, have been barraging almost all of the bridges in the area as the Russians were withdrawing, and we can see here that this one didn't turn out so well. I have to mute it due to copyright reasons, but we can see the Ukrainian soldiers walking around the bridge, taking a good look at it, and it appears that a BMP-3 or a BMD-4, we're not sure which one it is yet, went face down into the soup. Or the drink, or whatever you want to call this. You see them walking by. We can also see a BTR that almost fell over the side of the berm up there. Tony must have been driving. And I think that they could probably recover these vehicles if they wanted to, but I don't really think the Ukrainians are desperate for vehicles anymore. I'm sure they got millions of them over the past few days. And with that, that's the end of the video, but once again, showing that the Russians didn't really withdraw the way they want you to think, whereas a successful withdrawal, they got it handed to them. They did take losses, and we can even see to this day that there are Russian prisoners being captured on the other side. For example, moving on to one of the clips, I gotta try and find it here real quick, we can see that the Ukrainians took on some more Russian prisoners of war today, and so here's one of them. We can see the Ukrainian poking the Russian with a stick. I love how it goes from like a Steve Irwin kind of cocky, mate. We found ourselves a Russian in a dugout. Let's poke it with a stick. And then it went from that to just a whole massive group of Russian prisoners that have had their hands tied up.
Турникеты наши откуда, блядь? Тоже дали? Донецкие ребятки. Скажите, как оно стоило сюда идти вообще?
So nasty they don't even want to touch them.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, I would rather not.
Что мы издевались, били вас, стреляли, чи не?
Нет, не издевались, не били, пацаны отнеслись, первую медицинскую помощь оказали нам.
Все. Ну я бы нес, но я раненый, блядь, пацаны. Рука, блядь.
Спасибо большое, пацаны, вам за то, что вы оказали помощь.
Ну да. Откуда ты, повтори?
Я с города Инакиево.
Инакиево. Все.
But once again, if it's not evident, a lot of Russians didn't make it across. And this is starting to paint a little bit of a different picture than what we were seeing and saying about 2 days ago. We assumed that the Russians had actually been able to cross the Dnipro River with all of their forces, save a few. But now we're starting to see that prisoners are being taken in mass everywhere. And this is starting to show that a lot of Russian forces and a lot of Russian units didn't cross the river. They also didn't put up a defense. Instead, they tried to ditch their civilian clothes or hide in the woods, and now the Ukrainians are starting to root them out and capture them. And so with that, we're now going to be moving into Kherson real quick to also show you 8 more Russian prisoners that were captured inside the city. And so with that, here's this video as well, and tell me, does this look like a winning army? 95% of our viewers would say no. The other 5% would probably say yes. Well, you see the Ukrainian armored car right there, and we can see some Russians along the wall. Also, I have to say, this guy is already going for the ugly sweatshirt competition around Christmas time. And we can see right there clear evidence that some of them were switching into civilian clothes. And so with that, that's the end of the video. But once again, more prisoners being captured, which is more good news for Ukraine. I don't know if anyone's been catching on, but the more Russian prisoners that are taken on, the shorter the war will last, because the Russians, of course, will be running out of manpower that they can't replace. Now we're going to be moving all the way back up to Novokakhovka again, and this time we're going to be checking out some Ukrainians going on a stroll. It's just a nice morning stroll. Kids on the side of the road just, for some reason, handing out food. I wonder why they would be doing that.
Oh, little angel. Thank you. That's awesome. Lovely. It's perfect. Beautiful.
Man, everywhere the British go, they bring freaking road chefs with them. Now they're setting up Road Chef Mini on the side of the road.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now the soldiers are back on their way, but what a nice little morning stroll in their cars.
That's pretty good.
They're getting free food. If that doesn't tell you how happy the Ukrainians are to see the army coming back by, I don't know what does, because handing out food is a huge sign of friendship here in the United States. With that, we're now going to be moving down to the area of Olhivka, where we saw that the food down here was kicking. And, of course, this is a great indicator of what Ukrainian forces are really dealing with logistically. So let's take a look at this, and let's see what kind of food they got. So it looks like they got a burner, and they got some pots. And what are they cooking? They got some hot noodles, some hot soup, and fresh tomatoes? And this is why, real quick, because this is actually right on the Dnipro Reservoir, somewhere along it from what we can tell. This lets us know that the Ukrainian logistics and supply lines are in mint condition. They're optimal, as you could say, because transporting perishable foods like tomatoes to the front lines and they're not spoiled yet That is a massive logistical feat. And to know that they've moved their, I guess you could say, front line almost 30 miles away from their nearest supply hubs, yet they're still having the ability to cook up fresh, hot food, that lets us know clearly that the Ukrainian front lines are not in any kind of dire straits with supplies. They're actually doing quite well, and it looks like the supply lines are keeping up with this rapid advance. And so with that, we're going to let the video keep on going. These people are eating gourmet. I think Gordon Ramsay would even be jealous.
Looks like gumbo, some noodles, and tomatoes.
It kind of looks like it, yeah.
Although it's probably not gumbo, though.
It's probably not gumbo. Also, why in the world does this guy look like some kind of Greek philosopher, like Socrates or something like that?
Maybe.
Like, here, let me pull it up. Wait, hang on, everyone. I gotta Socrates. Hang on, let me get the right here. This one. You kind of see it a little bit.
Somewhat.
This man's about to look up and say, "What is a man?"
Сало беріть.
Сало не беріть.
Сало, бля. Ти береш тарілки, набираєш, так? Краще, щоб ви їх держали. Ну, бо я охуєв, що як воно гаряче. Давай.
Sounds like one Ukrainian is releasing some gas. To say it in the best way possible. And we see this man is still serving up the hot food. And with that, that's the end of the video. But it's nice to see the Ukrainian supply lines are so well off that soldiers are still able to cook up hot, fresh, and pretty good-looking food on the front lines still. And it shows that if they do cross the Dnipro River, the supply lines will probably start to face some difficulties, but they will not be that severe. With that, we're now going to be moving a little bit further down, again, towards the town of Tikhnika, which is always a hard one to pronounce, where we can see that a grandson was able to meet his grandmom again. This grandmother was in Kherson the entire war, and her grandson was in the Ukrainian army fighting to liberate the city. And today, they were reunited with each other. And so with that, here's this short little video. Isn't that sweet or what? I mean, that's something, right?
The onions are out again.
Yeah, the onions are out. That's why I'm having a hard time coming up with stuff to say, because we've seen so many videos like this over the past 2 days that it's like, dang, it's like, you know, this entire offensive, this liberation that we've seen has had a truly massive impact, and this is what, once again, if anyone ever has a question, what is this war being fought for? This is what the war is being fought for, is scenes like these, where families get reunited again, and they're all living under the same flag in the same country, and luckily enough, this grandmother survived. Of course, the Russians have been committing atrocities all over. We haven't heard of any mass graves in Kherson yet, although I'm sure that they are out there, and it's good to know that they were able to be reunited again. What a nice thing to see on this day of the war in Ukraine. So with that, we're now going to be moving a little bit further down the line, past the Russian POWs, towards, I guess you could say, the Inhalets River. I guess that would be the best way to say, where we can see that a Ukrainian soldier has captured some more Russians. This one's in civilian clothes.
І погрожував ще українському населенню.
The audio is all kinds of jacked up, but we can see his passport right there. Look at that. It's a full-on bona fide Ruski. And we can even see another one over there, in civilian clothes. Well,
that's like the worst thing the Ukrainians have ever done to a war criminal is flick him on the forehead.
Yeah. Also, the funny thing is that the whole video, this guy was petting him like a cat or something, like, "Oh no, you're in a little bit of trouble, aren't you?" This guy was just patronizing him the whole time. He's like, "Oh no, someone get captured. Someone gonna be crying a little." And also, it looks like they wrapped his head up in some kind of like a restaurant shopping bag. But with that. That's the end of that little video. But once again, nice to see that they're still taking on prisoners, and that none of them are getting past the Ukrainians, although they were dressing in civilian clothes. Moving back down to the Antonovsky Bridge, which is now entirely in the river, except for a couple of spans of it, we saw that while the Russians were leaving, they decided to put up a Russian flag on one of these surviving spans. And the Ukrainians had none of this and literally shot it down like an airplane or something. And so here's a video of the Ukrainians taking down the Russian flag in a very American way. If U.S. forces did this, I would say that's very American. So let's watch the video.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, baby. And when you finally see them take it down with that last massive barrage of gunfire, but hey, I mean, like, that's the way to take down the Russian flags. Hopefully they can recover the tricolor toilet paper and use it for a floor mat or something similar, because of course there are loads of them to go around, and I hope that the Ukrainians really find the uses that you can use these flags for. And so with that, we're now going to be...
They might have some Alabama in their blood after doing something like that.
Maybe. It also a funny story to let y'all know why we're saying this is an Alabamian thing. Back in a place we used to live, we had a next door neighbor that didn't like a tree branch that was hanging off of one of the trees in the backyard, and so he got
he shotgunned it.
Yeah, he got a shotgun and went out there and just shot the tree limb off. Like in the middle of a neighborhood. It was bizarre, but it's very Alabamian, very American of these guys to shoot down the Russian flag like that. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip and on into the next inside of Kherson itself, because now it's time to go through the feel-good days like we have been before, because the Russians are now in the end times, I guess you could say. For the Russians, it's the end times. And we can see here that the Ukrainians have recovered a last-ditch weapon that apparently was issued to Russian forces. And so with that, here's the video. And I know, Matthew, that you're probably very busy, but I know that you'll pick up what this gun is if you see it and how it works. So make sure to watch this video.
Bullpup?
Oh no, it's worse. I'll just watch, you'll see.
Так, а ну покажи нам ленд-лиз.
That's a Ukrainian bullpup, and this right here is a Russian bullpup.
Вот он.
What the hell?
Ленд-лиз. Ленд-лиз пришел.
For the love of God!
What in the world? Did he just pull a lever?
It's like a straight pullback bolt.
They're gonna like pump the water out of the well with that thing next.
Oh my God! For the love of people in the Khyber Pass come up with better guns than this.
Ленд-лиз.
Let's watch that again. Oh my God! It's like a
whole
BB
new
gun.
term for lever action.
Глянь,
A lever
покажи,
action
тактический
bullpup.
ремень.
Oh my God!
Тактический ремень, щоб переносить в русских, да.
And some Russian idiot.
Все нормально.
What in the world was that? Did this guy just boil over like a teapot? He just went.
Щоб переносить в русских, да. Проволока.
What?
It was an overload from the ingenuity of that gun.
Yeah, the Ukrainians' like brains are seeping out of his ears right now from just the stupidity of the design, and he had to let it all boil out. So let's hear that just one more time.
Да. Проволока.
Oh my
Нормально. Ось їхня позиція, ви їх розбомбили.
It's the Ukrainian cry for help.
Пизды получили, да. Вот сколько тут всего было. Это пиздец.
And we see a Russian camp that was literally blown into splinters here. So this was in a Russian camp, and they're giving people these bullpup-looking guns that almost look like a BB gun. And some of y'all are saying, is that a BB gun? No, it's not. Because if you look at the diameter of that of this breech, that's not a BB gun. BB guns have an incredibly small breech. We have one, actually, and we've messed around with it when we were kids, hardly any anymore, but BB pellets are incredibly small, and this breech is so large that they could probably fit a 12 gauge into it. And some poor idiot got issued that gun. That is just scary to think. Like, that's how bad off the Russians have gotten, is that they're literally starting to make stuff out of just cheap tubes and crap and giving it to people because they have nothing else to give them. Oh my lord. And also, look at the strap. Like the literal strap. It's literally made out of wire, and I think that's why that guy did that noise, because this is just ghetto. This is even more ghetto than a ghetto bomb, like an F1 with a popsicle stick on it. This is unbelievable, I gotta be honest with y'all. And I think, if anything, the liberation of Kherson was worth it just for this one video, because it's showing you how bad off the Russians have really gotten. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip. I hope y'all enjoyed looking at this terrible abomination. I'm sure that this will pop up on Brandon Herrera's channel, his cursed guns videos that he makes. And so with that, we're now moving on into the next clip of news, which is actually in Kherson now. So now, let's take a look at a feast for kings. A real feast for kings. This Ukrainian family has welcomed in some soldiers, and they are giving them everything they have to eat. And so with that, here's the video. I mean, soup to the top. It's got, like, prime meat in it, too. Like, look at the chunks of meat in that stuff. Like, that's some prime quality beef.
That's enough for days.
I know. Look at this. They got sausage, they got cheese, bread, they got everything. I mean, this is a meal. Honestly, it looks bussin', and I would eat it if I was there. Of course, I'm not there.
Wait a minute. Is that borscht?
Yes, it is, I believe. Because it looks like it has cabbage in it and stuff, but it also has some meat. And I gotta say, this family went above and beyond to cook up this food. Also, by the way, y'all, that kind of looks like a sausage that's very similar to Spam, which, of course, is delicious. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip and on to the next clip from inside Kherson, and we're building our way up to the best one yet. So now moving on to the next clip, we can see this man saying that it's like freedom at last. And I guess you could say that that's about the best way to summarize this entire ordeal in 3 words, is freedom at last. And so with that, let's check out this video. Also, these guys are going to get copyrighted for playing that anthem.
Hugely emotional scenes here in the centre of Kherson. The military are driving through, they're playing the national anthem, and people are just running out, tears in their eyes, to express their gratitude for liberating the city, for coming in here and bringing it back under Ukrainian control. This woman has tears in her eyes.
Thank you, Mr. Reporter Man. I couldn't tell that without your incredible input.
She's saying thank you very much to the armed forces of Ukraine.
В чому ми винуваті, що це так вийшло? В чому винуваті?
Героям слава!
Freedom at last. It feels like a big future is coming here.
Did you ever think this moment would come?
From the very first day, I knew it was coming, sure.
The 9 months of occupation?
Yes, yes.
And what was that like?
It's been 9 months?
That's it.
Is it? I thought it was 8.
Maybe they're off by a month.
Wait a minute, hang on. How long? Wait a minute, hang on. Let me think. How many days? 263. Hang on, I've got to do the math on this real quick. Well, I'm going to let the rest of this video play out while we figure out how many months it's actually been, because I can't believe it. If it's been 9, that's insane.
You have to have something which you live for, and this was the moment to live for.
But man, what a video, and of course showing you all the celebrations are still going on today, and I think they're going to be going on pretty much for the rest of the war. I mean, every day now is a day to celebrate. It's Ukrainian again, and you can see that everyone's taking an opportunity to pull out the Ukrainian flags they've hidden away for 9 months nearly, and they're now flying them again. It almost has been 9 months, crazily enough. It's just about a week away from being the 9th month.
Interesting.
That's unbelievable. We've been here for 9 months covering this war, and when you look at days like these and the excitement that's surrounding them, it doesn't feel like 9 months. It feels like it's been a week. But with that, we're now going to be moving up to Chernobyivka, where we can see that the Ukrainians have gotten their hands not just on a Ukrainian, well, I guess you could say a Ukrainian Russian captured helicopter that they've now recaptured. They've also gotten their hands on a nice Russian Mi-24. So here's the video.
Аккумулятор с него спиздили, теперь главный сержант 1-го батальона пытается завести вертолет.
I was scared right there when he bounced off that thing and it started shaking. I thought that he was about to come down and hit his head like the Taco Bell dong. You know, it's gonna go boom. But with that, that's the end of the video. And also, look how crappy this Mi-24 was. look at that.
Man.
Like, that is hideous. Like, that thing was just put into absolute state of disrepair. It also looks like the Russians may have had a reason for doing that, because it looks like they painted over a Ukrainian roundel, but once they captured this thing, they just let it rot. They just kept on flying it pretty much with no repairs whatsoever. But it's nice to see that they got another one back, and once again, the Russian bots are crying. I don't know if y'all seen in the live chat, but we've had a massive absence of Russian bots. That's because they're all on suicide watch right now for what's been going on recently. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our last clip of news from Kherson, where we can see that the commander, not just any soldier, not just any unit rolling through the town, the Ukrainian Major General, the commander of the southern group, has visited Kherson himself. And so let me show y'all this video, because this is almost like General MacArthur arriving in the Philippines again. It's really something. And so with that, let me get y'all to it, and I'll just show y'all the video. It does have subtitles as well. And so here we have it. He's standing there, Matthew, like he didn't even expect to get this kind of welcome. He's like, well, dang, these people are hyped up.
Очень важно, я хочу сказать. Поэтому мы ждали, знали, что вам, когда нужно, тогда вы это все пойдете. Ничего, мы можем еще подождать.
Да, але я вам дякую всім, що ви за витримку, за те, що ви витримали, за те, що ви зробили тут безпосередньо, бо без вас би ми теж, напевно, ще довго йшли сюди, без вашої допомоги, без вашої підтримки, без вашої віри в нас, в Збройні Сили України і в Україну. І повірте мені, що все буде хорошо, ми відбудуємо все далі, ми повернемо все.
Головне, залишайтесь за Україну! Мы подождем. Ничего. Смотрите, когда вам
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, it's amazing to see. And it's also great to see that everyone's recording and getting these videos out. How electric Kherson is right now. It's unbelievable to see the kind of stuff that's going on down there. And it's incredible to know that the major general of the southern group that's been in charge of this offensive so far and reclaiming this territory has made it to Kherson, and he's visiting the citizens himself. And so with that, that's the end of that little video, and that wraps up our Kherson segment for the day. But moving on from that, we already see the potential for the Ukrainians to start pushing further south from this area. And while we can't get into exact details of what they'll be doing and where they'll be going, I still have great faith in them. Also, the other reason why I'm not wanting to get into great detail about what they're doing is because we really have no idea anymore what they're doing. We don't even have a... We can't work off of logical precedent anymore, because based off of the logical precedent and realistic expectations that we laid out for the Ukrainians before, it would still be another 2 weeks until Ukrainian armed forces would have entered Kherson, yet they've already entered it yesterday, and they're already reaching the other side of the banks today. So I have no idea what they're going to be doing in the future anymore, and I'm glad to say that for once, and I'm glad to know that the Ukrainians are defying expectations so well that I pretty much am just clueless. And that's honestly a pretty good way to end out that entire segment. All we know is that it's only going to be going up from here, and the Ukrainians aren't stopping now. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the Dnipro area and also our location unknowns. But before we get to that, I've seen that Matthew's thrown up a really good poll, and this has got to be the highest voted poll we've ever had. 2,500 of y'all have voted on this one, and it's just interesting, and it looks like a lot of y'all have pretty much unanimously decided on it. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks, and we do have two polls to address, and that first one that the enforcer mentioned says Do you think the Russians really want to come to Washington and teach the USA a good old lesson? It looks like 69% said no, it's propaganda only. 27% said yes, Ivan goes to Washington, if you get the reference. 4% said maybe, but can't tell. Now, I think very clearly it is definitely propaganda. They don't plan on coming to Washington. They knew that would be, I don't know how to say it without saying the S word. I don't know if YouTube's going to like that or not, but that wouldn't be good for Russia if they tried to do that. Let's just say that. But unfortunately, what do you think?
To pull a little page out of their books, if the Russians try and come to America, we will grease them down with the machine gun. Like, it wouldn't end well for them. I don't even know how they would get here, first off. They would have to cross the entire Atlantic, and I'm sure that NATO would pose a little bit of an issue for them to get to the United States. And then once they get here, they have to deal with the entire United States Navy, the entire U.S. Army, pretty much all of it at this point in modern history is in the United States. It's not even deployed overseas. And then they'd also have to deal with the literal mighty U.S. Air Force. The U.S. Air Force is so large that the next 7 largest air forces in the world combined aren't even close in size still to the U.S. Air Force. So I don't really think that they would have a chance of coming to Washington if they even wanted to. And so I would largely have to agree. I wouldn't say it's propaganda, though. I would actually have to say Russians are so delusional, they believe that it's possible. And that's why that demonstration was being had. It's not necessarily propaganda on the Russian government's part. It's delusions on the Russian public's part. And honestly, if they are that delusional, then I can see why they're getting their asses beat in this war, because they can't even think straight. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one said, do you believe that the Ukrainian military are over the river, or is it simply a recon unit? It looks like this is a pretty evenly split poll. 36% said the entire military has advanced over, 34% said I'm not sure, waiting to see, and 31% said no, it is simply a recon unit only. Now on this one, I'm going to fall within the I'm not sure camp because I am not sure. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would have to say I would fall in the I'm not sure camp, but the Ukrainians have given me no reason to not be optimistic in what they're doing, and so I'm going to go with the side of everyone that's saying that it's probably the army that's moving over, and we're seeing the initial, I guess you could say, bridgehead groups, I guess you could say the spearhead of their advance, reaching the other side of the river to make sure that the rest of the army can make it over quite easily. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well. And also, to circle back to the last one, when I was talking about, the Russians would have to deal with the entire U.S. military, some people started saying, well, I mean, like, hell, they'd have to deal with the cops, too. Just imagine this, Matthew. Imagine the Russians end up in, like, Boston, like somewhere near Cape Cod, and they land on the beaches there, and the U.S. cops just roll up, show us your hands, bah, 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 and they just start firing at them. Honestly,
they haven't met American cops yet.
Russian cops will stick your head down onto the floor, but American cops will unload an entire clip of pistol ammo into you, and then sit there and load another one into you. So I don't think that they would even make it against U.S. cops. I mean, imagine Barney Fife out there on that beach. Barney Fife would be putting them down on the ground. I mean, he would be keeping them down, and he'd be putting them down too. And so with that, I hope we address that part.
Citizens arrest.
Citizens arrest. They'd just be... I mean, the Russian, just getting past all the jokes that we're making, because it's hilarious to think that the Russians would ever think that they would stand a chance against the United States. It's hilarious to think that they even have the concept that they would. I don't even think any of them imagine what's involved in something like that. But anyways, with that, also someone said a pistol clip. Yeah, it's a clip.
Mag. It's a mag.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It's a mag. I'm sorry. I believe there's 19 bullets per clip. Actually, somehow I almost got that terminology correct. Although it was supposed to be a joke on how a lot of people get that wrong. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, so that was the last poll for our first segment. So we are moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $150 donation from none other than Gary Robbins, who is a channel legend, who says, this has been the best week since the Russians retreated from Kyiv.
Thank you so much for the support, Gary Robinson. I agree completely. This is, I'd honestly have to say, this is better than any other week in the war so far. Better than the Moskva sinking, better than the Kerch Bridge being hit. This one takes precedent over them all. Most certainly because almost 750,000 Ukrainians have probably just been liberated over the past 32 hours. And for that reason alone, I find it to be the best day by far. And so with that, thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Gary Robinson. That helps this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep on covering days like these and hopefully get to the best day that there will ever be in this war when it finally ends, the final day of the war. We don't know when it's coming, but hopefully it'll be in the next several months. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one. But before we're on to the next one, I want to see this. So let's see what's the difference in between a clip and a magazine. A clip is a small device that, oh, okay. Okay, now I see. The clip is, what they're talking about is a stripper clip. And hopefully, let me take this off screen real quick, just in case if it pulls up something odd. Okay, yeah, it didn't pull up anything odd. So a clip is a stripper clip. But I've always called pistol magazines clips. I don't know why. And then rifle magazines, you know, the detachable magazines, I call those magazines. I don't know why I've done that, because it appears that based off of the unanimous answers, it's wrong. It's a wrong statement to make. But still pretty interesting to see. Also, another thing, speaking of clips and magazines, someone actually said that a clip was for an M1 Garand. And I know that everyone's going to be like, it's a Garand. It's not. The guy's last name was Garand, and it's actually supposed to be pronounced Garand. But anyways, moving on from that, it's not a clip that feeds a M1 Garand. It's an in block. I spelled that wrong. In block. And let me try and get y'all the in block. I guess I'd have to put in clip. But this is what feeds an M1 Garand. It's this odd-shaped piece of metal. I've actually owned and shot a Garand before, so you have to buy these things to use them. And it just holds the bullets into like a little pack. There's no spring in it. The spring is inside the M1 Garand, and it pushes up through this little metal M block. But it is not a clip. It's an M block. Which is something that is also very interesting. So while I got schooled on one I guess you'd say title, the M1 Garand does not use a clip, it uses an in block. So with that, we are on to the next one. Once again, a little interesting look into, I guess you could say, gun terminology. But with that, on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Chipker1, who says, the crossing to the Kinburn Peninsula, the only unliberated territory in the Mykolaiv region, is the target of the armed forces of Ukraine. Quote-unquote, combat work is underway, said Natalia Humanyuk, the spokesperson of the Operational Command Pivden.
And thank you for the support and also clarifying that for us. And I believe he's talking about this specific straight right here, if I'm correct. But I'm not particularly sure. But I thank you so much for adding that information to the stream, so that way we do know that. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for support from viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible for this stream to be running tonight, for us to be covering the news. And so for that, thank you so much once again. And also thank you for providing us with that additional information. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Right, and for the final one of our first question segment, it goes to Colleen Emsley, who's a channel legend as well, who puts in a $40 donation and says, thank you guys so much for your coverage. I am quite upset over the Dallas Air Show accident. I've been in an air show with a biplane, as I mentioned before, best time ever, even more so of my B0105 flights. Accidents do happen, and it's so sad. And Colleen, it is very sad, and the enforcer showed me the video earlier, and that was really horrific to see, and it's really unfortunate what happened with that. I've actually never seen too many accidents at air shows, but then again, I probably just haven't seen them. But maybe Enforcer can enlighten us.
Yes, the incident at the Dallas Air Show that occurred today was in between a P-63 Airacobra, which we can pull up right here, the P-63 King Cobra. Wait a minute, hang on, I think I'm talking about a P-400, sorry about that. But a P-63 King Cobra, not the Airacobra, and a B-17 Flying Fortress, which oddly enough, we were talking about just the other day on this channel, I believe it was yesterday, with Walter Lakota. But the aircraft that were involved was this B-17 and the P-63. I could probably try and find the video to show on stream. In fact, I can probably send it to myself because I have it on my phone right now, and show that to y'all, because it was quite a horrendous sight to see, and something that doesn't really happen often in air shows. Disasters like this are rare. Usually only it happens every several years or so, and sadly this one took out two incredibly rare and historic aircraft, especially for the United States. So real quick, let me send this to myself. Or Matthew. I think it'll probably be easier to send it to you. And let me add that. Let me go find it. Here we go. So it's being sent over right now. And so I'm going to pop up Discord real quick and show you all that clip, because it was an unfortunate thing that happened. As far as we know right now, there were 7 people inside of the B-17 Flying Fortress when the P-63 hit it, and there was also one pilot in the P-63. We're assuming that he was killed on impact. And so with that, here's the video. We see the B-17 flying over, the P-63 hits it, shears the tail clean off of the B-17, which goes flying straight into the ground. The B-17's fuselage then hits further up and explodes into a fireball.
Fucking God! Are you serious, bro? This shit really just happened, right?
So watching it again, I don't understand what happened here. I really don't, because the P-63 maybe couldn't see it. I'm having a feeling that you could see the B-17 at some point from the cockpit, but it's almost like the P-63 aimed for the fuselage of the B-17. I don't really know what happened there. I would have to say, of course, the NTSB is looking into this, and also the FAA. They'll probably find out that it was the fault of the pilot, because one thing that the company that owns these aircraft has said is that they were being kept up to tip-top maintenance and spec, and you really do have to do that with these older aircraft, because if one thing fails, almost everything will fail on them. So the fault has to be lying with the P-63 pilot. Something must have happened to him. Maybe he had some kind of health condition, like a heart attack or a stroke or something similar. He lost control of the aircraft and it rammed into the B-17. But still, it was a crazy video to see, and it was unbelievable to think that something like this happened to such a rare aircraft. There are only 7 flying B-17s in the United States as of yesterday, and now after this crash, there are only 6 of them. And so, of course, it's unfortunate to see the loss of life. 7 people were killed on the B-17 and 1 in the P-63. And it's also very unfortunate to see a loss of such a historical aircraft. There's, of course, only 6 of these B-17s flying now, and this was the 7th one, just lost today. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that. And thank you so much once again for the support and sharing your story with us on that. And I hate to think that such a thing happened, and it's crazy to think that it was caught so clearly on film, and I'm sure that I'll help out with the investigations as to what happened later on, and hopefully help to avoid incidents like that at air shows going forward. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running, and allowing us to take a quick little look at that incident, because although we do not cover incidents inside the United States, and this is a Ukraine war stream, that was a very unfortunate and very odd and rare event that did occur today. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this question segment, and we're now going to be moving on into the next segment of news. Starting off in Nikopol, where we can see that the Russians have gotten quite embarrassed off of their defeat, and they're once again trying to barrage Nikopol into submission. And you see the artillery shells exploding onto Nikopol in the distance. And with that, that's the end of the video, but it's very sad to see once again that whenever the Russians lose, their go-to strategy is to attack Ukrainian civilians. Never the military, it's just the civilians. And once again, they're using Nikopol as their center of, I guess you could say, venting. With that, we're now going to be moving out of Nikopol and on up into our location unknowns, where we've seen some pretty interesting sights today, starting off with the Ukrainian Mi-24 firing off some of its rockets. Now, I gotta mute this because I just heard there's copyrighted music in there. But we can see the helicopter flying along, and then tilts up, fires off its rockets, and now it's hitting the floor again. Wash, rinse, and repeat, I say, but still, it's great to see that the Ukrainian helicopter pilots are out there doing their job and giving it to the Russians. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we've also seen an ammo dump being destroyed. This one blew up with such intensity that it actually took down the drone that dropped the bomblet. And so with that, here's the video. When you see the drone preparing its bomblet to drop on this open-air ammo dump. Once again, huge credit to the Russians for being so stupid. And you see them getting right down on top of the mines, and now they're about to drop the bomblet. We now see the bomblet on its way, kind of taking a tumble, but oh my lord, the few seconds we saw of the explosion were pretty violent. Let's take a look at that again. Oh my lord. And of course the drone was taken down from the explosion. I mean, you now see it falling to the earth, and then the camera went out. But still, pretty nice to see that the drone was able to take out the open-air ammo depot. It just appears that it did such a good job at it that the drone was taken out as well. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can see that the Ukrainians have racing drone fever, as they're once again using their racing drones to hit the Russians where it counts, right on the infantry. And so with that, here's the video. When you see the bunker right there, it was highlighted. We can see the racing drone coming in right to the bunker, and it hit. We didn't get to see it hit, but the camera did cut out, letting us know that it was a success. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of Location Unknown News. And this isn't really a clip, it's more of a report, because the Russians have now passed 80,000 killed. Oh, by golly. Once again, those late war casualty numbers, 810 troops killed today, 34 armored personnel carriers destroyed today, 20 supply trucks destroyed today, 24 tanks, 12 artillery pieces, a drone, no new planes, helicopters, cruise missiles, anti-aircraft. They did get one special equipment vehicle, and it also looks like the Russians have lost Kherson, according to this report as well.
I like that. They had +1 Kherson.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I like it. And so that's the end of the low casualty report here, but once again, the Russians have now entered the late war. The casualties that they're taking on are so high that they'll probably be passing 90,000 casualties in 10 days at this point, or a little bit more. It'll most likely be around 15, but they'll be getting another 10,000 killed in just 15 days, nearly 2 weeks of time, and they'll probably be passing around 100,000 killed before the end of December. And that right there, if that doesn't describe a late war picture, I don't know what would. It's something the Russians can't keep up. These kinds of losses are incredibly expensive for the Russians monetarily. They're also expensive for the Russians as a nation. This number, 810 troops killed, is 810 men killed. There's very few women that serve in the Russian armed forces. It's something like 3 to 2%. So all of them are men. And this is about 810 men that are being knocked out of the Russian manpower pool each and every day. This is 810 men per day that will not be returning to any jobs inside of Russia. And of course, y'all are probably like, well, you know, what about the women? In Russia, it still is kind of in the, I guess you could say, societal norm that, and of course, you know, this is being pushed a lot by the Russian government, that women are supposed to raise kids and the men are supposed to go and work in the factories and such things. So based off of that societal structure that they've once again set up, although it's been a flip-flop throughout Russian history, they're losing invaluable amounts of manpower that will never be able to go back into the economy again. So in that instance alone, it is also incredibly costly for them each and every day that this war grinds on. And so with that, we can tell that the Russians will not be able to keep this war going on for much longer. And so with that, we're now moving on into our final clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see that the Ukrainians caught the Russians lacking, and in 4K nonetheless, and showed it off to a Ukrainian babushka. And she got a lot of joy out of watching the Russians get obliterated, much like y'all do on stream every single night. And so with that, here's the video.
Боже, це там... Це Бобровий кут. Бобровий кут, це ж тут теж ось у нас. О. Не треба в мою БМП целиться. Оп, а це де? Теж Бобровий кут. Теж Бобровий кут. Боже, красиво як.
Снігирьовка в ангарі, воно там.
А, ну, оце Снігирьов. Ой, як красиво. Так.
She's having a good time watching these videos.
Чого? А вони його бігали, тушили, а він потім воно, в Васильівці.
У Васильівці,
Що
да.
біля Євгена.
Ой, як красиво. Ой, а це взагалі саме красиво. Глянь.
And so
It's
that,
like the Ukrainian is showing up and like showing memes and stuff.
yeah, imagine you're a babushka, hardly touch technology in your life, and some soldier walks up with a phone and he's like, hey, check out these Russians, they got vaporized. Isn't that funny? That's literally what we do every single night on stream, but this soldier is picking up on a bit of a smaller, more personable scale and doing it with the local babushkas. But still, it's great to see, and it's good to know that everyone gets a good smile and a cheer out of watching the Russians get obliterated. Now, I want to say this, man, because I find this funny. I hope that our keyboard warriors that every once in a while come through that lecture me about this is a war and people are dying. I hope they go and lecture this soldier and this grandmother here for also getting a good laugh out of watching the Russians get vaporized, because it looks like I'm not the only one.
Yes.
And so with that, we're now moving on from our location unknowns and on into the northeastern area, which has had very little news to speak of today. Very little. Of course, most of our news today was entirely centered on Kherson again, as you can see. But moving on into the area north of Svatove, we saw a Ukrainian squad assaulting a Russian position in infrared, and it looks like they did quite well. According to what we were able to find out, we'll see if we can see this on video. The Ukrainians ended up taking out 10 Russians and putting them to sleep. And so with that, here's the video. When you see the Ukrainian squad here assaulting this Russian position, it looks like they're throwing some grenades into it. Looks like they're exploding right on the mark. We can now see a Russian who appears to have come out of the bunker, and it looks like he went to sleep. He had a nap. When you see that right there, yeah, he had a nap. The Ukrainians are still checking out this bunker, keeping their guns trained on it. We can now see what appears to be another Russian come out, and it appears that he's also taking a nap. We now see a third Russian and a fourth Russian come out, and it appears that they're all taking naps. This one, though, he ran for a little bit, but he decided it was time to take a nap as well. Well, we'll see. He's actually legging it out of there.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. He's not coming back. We now see the fifth and sixth
They
Russians.
said at their point, like, look.
the Ukrainians in there like, look, we got a runner. Look, Ma, he's running. Knowing what this actually looks like, not on infrared, it is kind of funny just to see this guy just pointing at him like, look, he's running, and knowing the actual scene that he's running from. But when you see the fifth and sixth Russians go and have a nap, I don't know what kind of bunker this is, whether it's a clown car or something, because there is an unbelievably high amount of Russians in such a small bunker. When you see this guy, he's trying to make it out of there. He's trying to leg it a little bit. Will he make it, though? It looks like he might actually be making it out of there. We now see another grenade explode on top of some of the sleeping Russians. Now see them blowing up some more grenades near the bunker. You see the Ukrainians are still moving around the bunker. I think they're waiting for more soldiers to come out. We can see a grenade explode way behind the bunker. I gotta tell you, this pink is really messing with my eyes. I look around the room and it's like everything's pink now.
I had to turn down the brightness on my screen for a minute.
And with that, that's the end of the video. I'm going to have to get off of it because it's just so freaking pink, it's going to throw off my eyesight for the rest of the night. But moving to discussing this is something a little bit interesting to me, is that we saw about 10 Russians come out of that bunker, and it looks like the Ukrainians had around 8 to 10 soldiers themselves. And a lot of people on this channel before, whenever I say, oh, look at the Russians, you know, they're using 20 guys to fight 3 Ukrainians, They always go, well, that's stupid because no one ever fights with even numbers because that's just stupid. No one ever wins that. And we just saw the Ukrainians go up on even numbers against a Russian unit, and they didn't take a single casualty, but they wiped the entire Russian squad out. And that lets me know that the Ukrainians, once again, like I was saying earlier on, and it's not always smart to attack with a one-on-one, I guess you could say pairing. It's always better to have a numbers advantage. But if the Ukrainians don't have a number advantage, they still win. They are still able to knock out an entire Russian squad without taking a single loss, which is great to know. And it's also showing how well trained the Ukrainians are compared to their Russian conscript counterparts. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the northeastern area north of Svatove, and we're now going to be moving to the area north of Kreminna, where we saw more Ukrainian but Czech-provided Susanas firing into the distance. I'm sorry, they're actually Slovakian. And so with that, here's the video.
Работа Григоровича. А второй.
You know, those things don't sound like artillery. They almost sound like shotguns at a ski club.
Yeah, they do.
Wait, let me go back. Let me, pull. Pull.
Oh, close.
I miss. And so with that, that's the end of that video. But once again, it's nice to see that the Slovakians have provided an incredibly interesting and really technologically innovative SPG, and it looks like the Ukrainians are using it to the best of their abilities. And so with that, it's now time to close down the pink video, the infrared video, and move on from the Susanna video as well. And now it's time for us to move down to the area of Berestove and Sperne, where we saw that a Foreign Legion soldier, an American Foreign Legion soldier, predicted something right on time. But before we get to that, I've seen that a really interesting poll has been thrown up. 800 of y'all voted on it, so I don't believe that this one has been given enough shelf life for y'all to vote on it completely. So we're going to be going to the poll before that and discussing that one, because it was also incredibly interesting. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the poll before that said, if Ukraine keeps up this new momentum, will they attempt to retake Crimea? It looks like 77% said yes, Crimea is coming. 17% said we will have to wait and see. And 6% said no, Crimea would be tough. Me personally, I think Crimea is next because they're moving fast, and they're moving a lot faster than I thought they would move. And they're doing things I honestly did not think they would actually get to do this fast, to be totally frank. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I think they will be. And also something else that's important to note is that the trap never happened. It's not happening anymore. The Russians have already blown up their charges on the Novikhovka Dam, and the dam didn't rupture. It only destroyed the bridge. So we know that that was all false. That was all a lie. And that was all something that was being hyped up, just out of fear factor. So we know that that's not happening. So the Ukrainians now have pretty much open reign in between Kherson to Armyansk to finally reach Crimea. And I honestly believe they may be heading that way. There was no reason to not think that they would. They're already moving forces to the other side of the Dnipro River, and so I would have to entirely agree with the vast majority of y'all. Crimea is probably going to be next. And once again, I would start working off a lot of precedent and fact and information, but I've got to be honest with y'all, there is no precedent for what's going on right now. I can't think of any historical instances where an army has moved this quickly and this unopposed at this time. And so I really got to be honest with you, I'm running in the dark right here, and I think that because they are doing so well, they could probably continue to do incredibly well all the way on into Crimea. And so with that, I hope we've answered that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one.
Right, and the most recent poll said, do you think the Wagner paramilitary group is plotting to remove Putin from power? Pretty interesting results. It looks like 38% said yes, Wagner may pull off a coup. 29% said maybe, and 32% said no, Wagner will not do it. Now, on this one, according to the articles I've seen thus far, it looks like the Wagner group might be starting to flex their muscles a little bit, but that certainly doesn't indicate that they're going to pull off a coup. But that's definitely interesting. So, Enforcer, what do you think?
I definitely think that they would not be pulling off a coup. I would say that they're the least capable of any unit on the front lines, except for the Kadyriovites. They come second. The Kadyriovites is the most incompetent frontline unit. And for that reason, I just don't see it. Also, it's made up entirely of convicts, prisoners, criminals, and shady people. And while those are usually the kind of people to start coups and acts of violence, I just don't think the Wagner group really has it in them. I feel like they would just be crushed by the normal Russian army, if anything. And also, seeing what they've been doing to their own soldiers who have tried to surrender, I think that they still have enough fervor in them that they wouldn't try and pull off a coup against the Russian government. But what do you think, Matthew?
I don't really know.
Well, that was interesting.
Like I said earlier.
But with that, I hope I've addressed that poll fairly well. And of course, I may be wrong, but I don't have high expectations or high thoughts about the Wagner Group at all. It's nothing but a bunch of thugs that have been given some guns with no training, and they end up getting killed daily on the front lines like some kind of cartoon villain. And so with that, we are on from that poll, and since we don't have any other polls, it is time to answer a couple of questions from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So moving on to our super chat questions, we have a $20 donation from John. Let me try to get this last name correct.
John Travolta?
Chikowski. No, John Chichowski or something like that. Sorry about that, John. He says, no question from me. I love the stream. Pick something from the chat and greetings from Arizona.
And thank you so much for the support, John. Also, cool to hear you're from the Lee Spring Army in Arizona. That is really cool. And of course, it's good to hear that you have no questions. I don't want to hear none of it. I'm just kidding with you. But of course, thank you so much once again for support. And we will make sure to hand that over to a live chat. And so what kind of live chat do we have, Matthew?
All right. In the live chat, it goes to WNNR1957, who says, have they been able to restore power to all the power substations that were bombed?
Sadly not. From what we've heard, a lot of Ukrainian cities are now without power because the Russians have struck at electrical infrastructure and knocked it out. They're currently trying to repair it, but as far as I know right now, the hopes of repairing that soon or in time or the repairs lasting appears to be quite small. So to answer that question, as far as we know, the electrical infrastructure has been hit heavily and is very damaged, leading to a lot of blackouts in most areas of the country. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And also, thank you so much once again for the support. John Chikowski, I believe is how you were saying it, Matthew, or
He said we done good on the last name. So apparently, somehow I got it right.
All right. So, hey, that's pretty good to know. We're finally starting to tack down the difficult names, hopefully. And thank you so much once again for the support, John. And I hope we were able to answer that live chat question fairly well. And so with that, we are on into the next one.
All right, and up next, we have another super chat from Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $20 donation this time and says, okay, I get it, Enforcer, sir. Donetsk, don't tell. Quote from CK. I guess that means Chip Kerwan.
Also, it's a run on like don't ask, don't tell. Donetsk, don't tell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
so
got
it's
it.
actually pretty clever. And I gotta say, Chip, that was actually a pretty smart one right there. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Chip, and helping this channel keep on running. And also, thank you for something that I'm probably going to be using in the future, hopefully. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for support, and a pretty good one-liner.
Right, and moving on to our third and final one of this segment, we have a $20 donation from Eric Bouchos, who's been around for a very long time, who says, greetings from Belgium. Good job, Enforcer, and Enforcer Matt.
And thank you so much for the support. Also, really cool to hear you from Belgium. And real quick, let's actually drop down in Belgium. Let's drop down in this town here. I would pronounce it, but I feel like I will butcher it. Also, wow, they've got a giant, like, steel mill down here still. That's crazy. Usually in Europe, you don't see that kind of stuff near a city center anymore. But let's drop down here, and let's see what this looks like. Pretty nice. What's that, mustache? Interesting, interesting. Also, we see a picture of some people here. Seniors, actually. I was a senior in high school once. But it looks like a pretty nice town, actually. I believe this is... Also, is that a Ukrainian flag? It is a Ukrainian flag. This was actually taken in July of 2022, so that's really cool. And also, thank you so much once again for support, and also being a member of the Lee Spring Army from Belgium, of all places. A really cool country. And so with that, was there a question involved with that, or were we supposed to get to a live chat, Matthew?
You just said greetings.
Oh, and of course, greetings to you as well, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta be honest with y'all, because I've been feeling this weird thing in my throat tonight when I talk. When I get really high-pitched and I talk excitedly, it feels almost like the back of my vocal like the back of my throat, you know, like imagine like your throat is like a flexible little like pipe. It almost feels like it's disconnecting from the back of my neck and just kind of like flapping around in there. So I'm going to have to try and take a break on my voice a little bit for the rest of the night because the last few days have been incredibly exciting. And because of that, I've been incredibly hyped up. And it seems to be taking a little bit of a toll on my voice. So I'm going to have to tone that down a little bit tonight. And that is why I'm kind of a little distracted sounding, as you can say, at some points, because I'm, you know, feeling that in the back of my throat. It's very uncomfortable feeling, and I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't happen. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. It's really cool we have Elite Spring Army members from all around the world, including Belgium. And so with that, I believe that's the end of this question segment, if I'm correct, Matthew.
And it is.
Yeehaw! Yeehaw! And so with that, it's now time to move on to the area of Spernay, where we saw some Foreign Legion members get something right on the mark. Literally. And so with that, here's the video. Was that right on or what, man? Look at that.
How do you know that?
I don't even know.
I got it.
I can't tell you though.
That was hilarious. Like, I don't even know how he did that. I don't even know how he expected it to come in like that. That's kind of like one of those things you do in school when the bell's about to ring to switch classes. You're like, the bell's going to ring in 3, 2, 1. And then the bell starts ringing. Like, that's like what he did right there, but on a much better scale, a cooler scale at that, too. And so with that, that's the end of that video, but I got to give it to the American Foreign Legion guy. He got that one spot on. With that, we're now going to be moving down from the area of Spernay and on into Bakhmut. We haven't gotten a lot of combat footage from Bakhmut or a lot of reports on the situation there, but one thing we did see is that a Russian Su-24 did get hit by some manpacks today in the area of Bakhmut. And so with that, here's the video, and let's watch this Su-24 suffer more or less. When you see the Su-25 out there popping off its flares, try it out there. It's a tiny little speck. See it flying on away. Then we see a boop, and a man-pad hit it. It's flying on over. And this man is feeling it. And it looks like that Su-24 may have had an engine fire. I think it's in the process of having an engine fire right there. So it may have been shot down. We're not able to confirm that on this film, but it does appear that it may be having an engine fire. I have a feeling it's not an afterburner because it looks like the fire is spread a little bit above the engine and onto the fuselage. So that may be an aircraft that was shot down, but we didn't get to see it on film. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but it's nice to see that the Ukrainians did pop an Su-24 with a man-pad in the Bakhmut area today. Moving a little bit further on down the front line and into Donetsk, we saw that the Ukrainians have been dropping more nades on the Russians. Gotta mute that, but we can see the Russians right there in their hidey hole. We can see the bomblet explode right amongst all of them. And we can see them dropping a second one. For some reason, the Russians didn't move the first time.
And the guy saw it coming, apparently jumped down.
Yeah, and it looks like it still didn't really save him. And we can see another one drop and apparently catch some ammunition on fire. But with that, it's nice to see that the Ukrainians are still using their drones to great effect. Although, for some reason, I did see someone say old, and I do think that that may be old footage. With that, we're now going to be moving down into the area of Marinka, where we saw some Russian Su-25s flying over the town of Marinka. Now everyone's saying it's old, so I believe it was old. But with that, here's the Su-25s flying over Marinka. Gotta mute this because that is classic music by Chopin. I'm kidding, I don't know who composed that. But when you see the
Chopin.
Chopin. When you see the Su-25s popping off their flares and trying to change the situation in Marinka, but from what we know, it's not changing anything. The Ukrainians are still holding the lines incredibly well, and I don't think any Russian aircraft or any Russian artillery can change that fact at this point. When you see this Su-25 also popping its flares, flying right under the drone, and flying off into the distance. We now see the drone looking back at Marinka. And we can also see a fire miles away in the distance. And some of that's the end of the video, but once again, an interesting look at the Russian armed forces and what they're doing in the area of Marinka, which is losing, but with a little bit of style, I guess you could say. And so with that, I have to pull this up real quick. How to pronounce
Chopin.
I was right. I was right. Everyone who was sitting there like, you said Chopin, it's Chopin. Y'all were wrong. It's Chopin. I was right. And so with that...
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, this is the American pronunciation.
Chopin.
Click on the pronunciation book, that YouTube video down there.
Okay. All right.
Chopin. Chopin. Chopin.
I was right.
Could you use that in a sentence?
This isn't a spelling bee. But also, let's check out the British pronunciation. Let's see if it's different.
Chopin.
Not really. It's not that different. But with that, it's nice to know that I
I would have never guessed. I thought it was Chopin.
Yeah, because you were making fun of me. I was like, I swear it's Chopin. It's not Chopin. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to Donetsk. You know, two Alabamians over here, ignorant as hell, arguing about how to pronounce a composer's name. We're probably both getting it wrong to some degree.
It's Chopin.
It's
Frederick Chopin.
It's that damn Beethoven and what's the other guy? Batch. Making up them good tunes. But anyways,
and Claude.
Yeah. How many people can we just screw up their names? Wagner. We got Richard Wagner over here, or as we like to call him, Dick Wagner. Anyways, speaking of the Donetsk front line, there is no action that we can see in this area. It appears that the front lines are stagnant, and they most likely will be for an incredibly long time, because this area is heavily fortified by both sides. Moving on down to the area of Yekharivka, we saw that the 71st Jaeger Brigade has been hitting the Russians quite well. We can also hear them playing their lo-fi hip-hop music.
Nothing like some lo-fi while you're watching some war footage.
Yeah, it's always nice, just relaxing. And you know something?
Gotta chill.
You know something funny, Matthew? Speaking of relaxing and all that stuff, and it made me think, Russians and Russian propaganda always revolves around, you know, the Western people are weak, you know, they like creature comforts, and the Russian army is so manly and so strong. And, you know, the Russian army is losing and getting obliterated on film while we listen to some smooth jazz. You know, it's like you can have cool propaganda recruitment ads all you want, but it's not going to stop you from getting obliterated while we play smooth jazz in the background.
And the only Russians that talk about them, you know, being tough and stuff are the ones that aren't starving. The leaders.
That's true. That's actually true. And we see this trench just getting annihilated right here.
It's a strange shaped trench.
It really is. It's like a T shape. Also, speaking a little bit more about comfort and all that kind of stuff, I don't understand what is with some groups and acting like you can't be comfortable, because, you know, this has been a thing always, people, you know, living in comfort in their air-conditioned houses with TV. I mean, why not? It's out there. You can buy the stuff. Why not live like it? You know, I don't understand why people act like you have to drink piss and eat stale crackers or something like that to... You know, I don't know, prove yourself or something.
They're just trying to cope with not having it.
Or something like that. I mean, like, there's a lot of people in America like that, though, you know, because, you know, there's the ones who are out there like, you know, you can, anyways, the video's ended, so we don't, I still want to carry on with this one, though. There's a group of people out there in America who are like, you know, you're not tough enough, you know, you gotta live tough, you gotta live like a pioneer. And I don't think they understand that pioneers in the 1870s and 80s were living with all of the creature comforts of the time. You know, like, if these people lived in the 1880s, they'd be sitting there going, these stupid people with their gas lanterns, why don't they live off of the moonlight or something, idiots, you know, like, they would be those exact same kind of people. I don't know why there's folks out there like that. But anyway,
stop being so tough. Have a donut.
I mean, like, you know, I'm all for, you know, rising to the occasion and getting in the knit and the grit and getting your hands dirty and everything. But if you don't have to, why would you? I mean, like, why not just live, you know, with a nice TV, a little bit of electricity every once in a while? You know, we have it. We've made it for a reason. Use it. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on over to the area of Arikiv, where we can see that a Russian column was attacked and obliterated today by none other than the Omega unit. And so with that, here's the video. When you see the Russian column moving down the road, that's their first mistake, is that they're moving down the road or they're even in sight at all. That's usually a telltale sign that many people will end up taking a nap by the end of this video. When you see the column still moving, and it looks like one of them had something happen to them. We can now see one of the tanks cresting over a hilltop, a very bad move. We can now see that on Stugna. We can now see the Stugna firing its missile. And the missile's on its way, and the missile hits right about there. Or right here.
It's a very chaotic missile. It's just like all over the place.
And it hit the front glacis, and it hit it so well, it still knocked it out, which was really impressive to see. We can also see that on drone. Do we have slow-mo replay of this? We can see another Stugna hitting a BMP.
I prefer to watch on Stugna, actually.
We now see this BMP firing off its main gun wildly into the distance. We see the Stugna firing again, this time picking out that poor, pitiful BMP.
That missile flies like a balloon, you know, when you like fill it with air and then you let go of it and it goes all over the room.
It kind of... No, it goes... I don't even know if that even picked up on the mic, but... Ooh.
It did. Oh, turret toss?
No, that was an engine bay hood toss right there. Take a look at that, though.
I got all hyped for it, too.
Man, that engine bay hood went into space.
Well, I mean, look, that's a 10 out of 10, even though it's not a turret.
True. I mean, like, that thing went off frame in, like, one frame right there. Well, you now see another BMP on the move. This one, too, shall meet a very swift fate at the hand of the Stugna. I don't know why these columns just continuously drive through their deaths one after the other in the same spot. You would think that these people would have a little bit more sense than that. We can see another BMP get obliterated right there. And I believe that may have been one of the last vehicles in the column. And it was, actually. It was the last BMP in the column, and the entire thing got destroyed by the Omega unit. And so while the Southern Front isn't having any kind of frontline changes, once again, the Russians are still taking high casualties on the front line that isn't even moving. And so with that, it's now time for us to go off map, or as they say, off the grid. It's time for us to pull up the President of Ukraine's website and go and see the address that President Zelensky made today on day 263 of the war. And so without further ado, here is the speech from the one, the only President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 263 of the war.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні ми всі разом відчуваємо піднесення. Я не знаю, чи є у нас хоча б хтось, хто ще не дивився відео з нашими херсонців, які зустрічають українських оборонців. Місяці російської окупації, місяці знущань над нашими людьми, місяці розповідей, що Росія там нібито назавжди, а все одно на вулицях море українських прапорів. Люди і не думали відмовлятися від України. І світ це зараз бачить, що значить, коли українці зустрічають своїх, бачить, що значить єдність українців і бачить, чому ми маємо звільнити від окупантів всю нашу землю. Ми ще побачимо багато таких зустрічей в тих містах і селах, які поки що в окупації. Ми ні про кого не забудемо, ми нікого не залишимо завдяки нашим оборонним операціям і дипломатії. Обов'язково вийдемо на наш державний кордон, на всі ділянки міжнародно визнаного кордону України. Станом на цей вечір силами оборони встановлено контроль більш ніж у 60 населених пунктах Херсонщини. Поліція розпочала стабілізаційні заходи. В самому ж Херсоні теж тривають стабілізаційні заходи. Всюди, на звільненій території, дуже багато роботи у наших вибухотехніків. Вже вилучено майже 2000 вибухонебезпечних предметів, мін, розтяжок, боєприпасів, які не розірвалися. Окупанти перед втечею з Херсону знищили всю критичну інфраструктуру. Зв'язок, постачання води, тепла, електрики. У рашистів всюди однакова мета – максимальне знущання з людей. Але все ми відновимо, повірте, хоч для цього потрібен і час, однак всім вже зрозуміло, результат буде наш, український. Дуже важливо зараз сказати усім херсонцям, щоб вони були обережними і не намагалися самостійно перевіряти будь-які залишені окупантами будівлі та предмети. Будь ласка, якщо у вас є зв'язок з містянами, обов'язково перекажіть їм це. В Херсоні працюють 10 груп вибухотехніків, працює поліція, є різні підрозділи Сил оборони. Сьогодні один з наших саперів, на жаль, отримав поранення під час розмінування адміністративної будівлі. Тому, будь ласка, шановні херсонці, будьте самі ж обережні та повідомляйте наших працівників поліції або рятувальників про всі підозрілі предмети, які ви бачите. Те саме стосується і мешканців інших населених пунктів на звільненій території. Будь ласка, дбайте про безпеку. Дуже важливо. Окремо хочу сьогодні звернутися до всіх наших військових, які перебувають на інших ділянках фронту, до усіх, хто дбає про нашу безпеку на кордонах, до усіх, хто захищає Україну в повітрі і на морі, до усіх, хто працює на оборону в тилових областях. Цей наш успіх та півдні став можливий завдяки тому, що всі наші захисники і захисниці з честю виконують свої завдання. Слова вдячності, які чують зараз наші оборонці на Херсонщині, це слова вдячності вам усім. Усім, хто воює за Україну, хто працює на нашу перемогу і хто на своєму рівні допомагає і досягає потрібних нашій державі результатів. І особливо це слова вдячності тим, хто витримує російські атаки на Донеччині. Там просто пекло, там щоденно надзвичайно жорстокі бої, але наші підрозділи захищаються хоробро, витримують страшний тиск окупантів, зберігають наші рубежі оборони. Це дуже важливо. Завдяки міцній обороні там, на Донеччині, ми можемо проводити наступальні операції на інших напрямках. Я дякую усім нашим воїнам, хто боронить Україну у цих особливо жорстких боях. Павлівка, Мар'їнка, Первомайська, Авдіївка, 1-й і 2-й батальйони 36-ї окремої бригади морської піхоти, 79-та окрема десантно-штурмова бригада, 72-га окрема механізована бригада, 68-та окрема єгерська бригада, 110-та окрема механізована бригада, 56-та окрема мотопіхотна бригада і 55-та окрема артилерійська бригада Запорізька Січ, яка всіх там підтримує. Дякую вам, воїни, за вашу стійкість, за вашу хоробрість. І я приєднуюсь до подяк і бажань, які вже отримали від херсонців наші бійці 28-ї, 63-ї окремих механізованих бригад та 59-ї окремої мотопіхотної бригади, наші розвідники, наші бійці Сил спеціальних операцій, нацгвардійці. Молодці. Дякую всім за блискуче виконання завдань для звільнення Херсону. Буде так в Генічеську і в Мелітополі. Прийдемо і до всіх наших міст і сіл Донбасу. Обов'язково побачимо, як там в Криму українські сили зустрічатимуть з українськими прапорами, як і там зберігають, які там сотнями будуть на вулицях в день звільнення. Я дякую всім, хто воює і працює заради української перемоги. Я дякую всім в світі, хто нам так сильно допомагає. Вічна слава усім, хто віддав своє життя за рідну Україну. Слава Україні!
And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 263 of the war in Ukraine. And that wraps up our news segment for tonight, and we're now about to be moving into the question segment. I thank everyone so much once again for watching this news, and if you did enjoy and you are new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe, because these streams run every single day of the week at the exact same time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, every single day except for Mondays. We cover the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine in both video and picture evidence, and we we also create our own custom map, which you see on stream, and you can also access in the link in the description below. You can also access our merch store and our Discord down there as well, and if you have not checked out our Discord, make sure to click on that link and join Discord now, because that will allow you to join the rest of the Lee Spring Army, which is on Discord. I believe there's around 5,000 people on our Discord server, and all of them are, of course, fans of this channel and are really interesting people to talk to. I've tried to talk to as many of them as I can, time permitting, and a lot of them are really cool people, like Psyops, Mark Hodges, among millions of, well, not millions, thousands of others. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on to the question segment. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for the final question segment of the night, we do have 2 polls to address. And the first one said, who would be the most likely to pull off a coup in Russia? It looks like 37% said Sergei Shoigu or the Russian military. 23% said the Russian civilians. 16% said the Wagner Group. And 25% said none of the above. So I'd have to say, I'm not really sure. Enforcer, what say you?
It would be the construction worker, Sergei. He's got
the construction workers.
Yeah, you know, the construction worker, Sergei. Remember, he was the construction foreman before he became the Minister of Defense.
I did not know that.
Oh,
that's
well,
news to me.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have any military experience. He used to be a foreman of a construction company before he got this position. So, you know, he's not really the most experienced guy for the role, but he would be the guy who would become the one to lead a coup against Putin. That's probably why Putin keeps a very close eye on the Minister of Defense, because the civilians would rise up, but the civilians don't have any power to do anything. It would be entirely within the military to do something, but they could use the civilians as leverage and act on their behalf and largely keep them in their good graces. So by that measure, I would have to agree with the majority of y'all and say that it would be Sergei with his little boys, the terrible, incompetent boys we see fighting in Ukraine right now, that would most likely be the ones to lead a coup and overthrow Putin. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have the poll here. I don't know why I'm saying up next we have a. It sounded like I was going into a super chat. But the next poll says, if you were going to receive a free military vehicle, which would you want the most? It looks like 41% said the Abrams X tank, 33% said the American MRAP, 10% said Stugna, and 16% said the Panther KF-51 tank. Now for me, I'll take a free Panther because that tank is really, really cool looking. The Abrams X is pretty cool, but the Panther is really cool.
Let's see here. Well, my throat feels like it's about to implode, and I'm going to have to get a little bit quiet and a lot more demure right now because I'm sorry, everyone, but I'm telling y'all, my throat right now feels horrendous, and I think it's because I've really been putting it through the ringer over the past few days. But the Panther...
The second. Oh, wow.
It's a cool looking tank. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it does look pretty cool. Also, where in the world did they...
Nice.
That's a CGI render. I was about to say, where in the hell did they take that? War Thunder? But anyways, moving on to these, it is a really cool looking tank. However... I will say this, the Abrams X looks cooler in my opinion. I think I would go with an Abrams X.
I mean, it's pretty cool too, but I don't know, the Panther's looking pretty sleek.
I don't know, I mean, like, the Panther's looking kind of thick on the turret, if you know what I mean. It looks kind of tall.
I mean, somewhat.
And also another thing about this is that I don't know, I don't really like... this one doesn't really have it. I don't really like the headlights being in the front of the mud guard, the mud flaps. I don't really know about that. I like the headlights.
I like that part.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's almost turning into a Toyota now. But with
it's like the Lambo of tanks. Also, are tanks automatic or manual these days?
I believe they're automatic.
Oh, what a shame.
Or they may
got to bring back the manual.
I believe some of them may be manual still, but most of them, well, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. We'd probably have to ask a tanker because I feel like they would be automatic, but at the same time, they could be manual considering that the Abrams was introduced into service in the 70s. But with that...
Oh, man. Could you imagine the Hill Toe and the KF-51? Man, that'd be sick.
And so with that, I hope we were able to address that poll fairly well. It's kind of split between Matthew and me. I'm a fan of the Abrams X. Matthew's a fan of the KF-51. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so that was it for the polls. So let me close that one out, and there might be another one on the way. Well, yeah, there might be another one on the way while YouTube's freaking out on me here. There we go. So moving on to our super chats. Up next, we have a $20 donation from Pooker1228, who says, I've never seen these type of reactions when the Russians supposedly liberated the area. Please take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, and I would entirely agree with you. Never saw that when the Russians rolled through, and that's because the people weren't really happy about the Russians being there. Otherwise, it would have been incredibly easy for Russian cameramen to capture the essence of the people being happy that they were liberated, and that tells you all you need to know. It tells you that none of them were happy to be liberated, and the Russians really had to try to get anyone to seem just indifferent to the Russians being there. I'm sorry, I'd almost like broke my jaw right there. But with that, we are on to the live chat, and thank you so much once again for support, and also sponsoring a live chat question.
All right, so moving on to our live chat question, it goes to Der Spieler, who says, if those Russian soldiers are in civilian clothes, do they have POW rights, or are they treated as spies?
I believe they don't have any POW rights. I believe they would be treated as spies, because if you're not dressed in a actual military uniform identifying you as an enemy combatant, then that could be considered deception, or, for example, spying. You could be labeled as a spy. So I would have to say they probably don't have any protections, and honestly, if they're willing to run that risk, then why not have some battlefield trials and some punishments on the spot, if you know what I mean? Considering that they were going to try and continue on the war like some kind of a vampire unit, well, I believe werewolf unit, that the Germans were hoping would pop up at the end of World War II. And so with that, I hope that addresses that part of the super chat fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And let's hear that live chat, Matthew.
All right, so moving on to the live chat question. Wait a minute, are you sure I didn't just read off that live? Wasn't that the live chat question?
I don't think so.
It was the one about the spies?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the live chat question.
I'm not very certain about that, because wait a minute, hang on. I think you're right. For some reason I'm getting confused here. And so with that, I hope we addressed that live chat really well, and thank you so much once again for the support. I'm sorry, I don't know how in the world I got that confused, but with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, because I'm curious, because this is kind of up my alley a little bit. It looks like the M1 Abrams tank has an Allison X1100 series automatic transmission. So the Abrams is automatic, and it looks like only the older tanks had the manual transmission. So it doesn't look like they're going to be doing any drifting anytime soon or anything like that. But man, that's a pretty good transmission. That's pretty bulky from what I know, if I'm thinking about the right one.
And I don't know anything about transmission, so I can't really add on to that at all. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr., who's the channel legend, who says, Aloha, Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. The difference between Ukraine president and the Russian president, Mad Vlad, is a big world disillusioned and a king and legend in his own mind, while President Zelensky is a real leader.
And thank you so much for the support, Walter. And I would have to agree with that completely. Zelensky seems to be a much more realistic leader. He actually gets involved in the nitty-gritty details. He doesn't really beat around the bush too much, because, for example, when Severodonetsk and Lysychansk were appearing to start to turn south for Ukraine, he didn't mince words. He just said in plain language, it's not really looking well for us up there. It looks like we're losing the battle in that area. And so I would have to agree with you entirely. Zelensky's a lot more realistic leader. He doesn't live in some kind of a fantasy, but Putin, on the other hand, lives completely in a fantasy. For example, let me show you all the Kremlin Honor Guard uniforms. Let me see if I can find those. Because if anyone's trying to say he's trying to reform the Soviet Union, look at these uniforms here of the Kremlin Honor Guard and tell me that that is Soviet era and not Russian Imperial era. That uniform is so Imperial era that it's laughable. I mean, like, with the shakos and everything, it may as well be the Napoleonic age. And that is one thing that tells you that this guy is delusional as hell. He imagines himself to be the next emperor of the Russian Empire, and that's what he's trying to rebuild right here. And I would have to say, anyone who thinks that about themselves, especially when you're in charge of a backwater country, is definitely delusional and not in the right state of mind. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And just in case if any of y'all are like, well, this kind of looks a little Soviet down here in the dress uniform, let me show you this thing right here. You see this little brass piece that's shaped kind of like a crescent moon? That's called a gorget. And if we pull that thing up, a gorget armor piece, let me get it right there. You'll see that a gorget was worn by soldiers in the late, well, really all the way through history for the most part, but it started to finally be phased out towards the early 19th century. And we can actually see a portrait here of George Washington, very important American history, wearing one around his neck right there. That's a gorget. And if we scroll down a little bit more, you can actually see that the I believe they were called the Gendarmerie, which would have been the German military police. They also had gorgets as well, and that was trying to recall back to the Prussian eras of tradition, I guess you could say. And so, to put it all into perspective, for a soldier in the 21st century to be wearing a gorget, that shows you that that uniform is supposed to be calling back to an age of the Russian Empire. And that lets you know that he's about as crazy as one could get. And he really thinks a little bit too highly of himself, also considering that this unit was created on personal orders of Putin himself. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support, Walter A. Lakota, and I hope I was able to address that one fairly well. Also, thank you so much for the support again. You've been helping out this channel massively, and I thank you so much for your continued support that helps us to keep covering this news night by night and also get to these really interesting side bits in the question segments. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, great work, guys, and in honor of the Ukrainian health professionals, civilian and military, first responders, and police forces that have done their best to save lives and restore order.
And thank you so much for the support, and also giving a huge shout out to all of the Ukrainian first responders and medics. They've been doing an incredible job, and while we haven't been able to show and really put the firefighters of Ukraine on a pedestal, the Ukrainian firefighters are incredibly hardworking and daring guys. I mean, like, especially back during the Battle of Kharkiv, we saw the Kharkiv firefighters really putting themselves through the ringer, and all firefighters throughout the entirety of Ukraine have been doing things similar like that throughout the entirety of the war. And so, of course, a huge credit to them as well. They don't get a lot of credit. They don't get a lot of limelight, but they really do deserve it along with everyone else. Because if anyone's showing what bravery really is, even without a gun, the firefighters and medics and first responders of Ukraine as a whole are certainly showing it to the rest of the world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and also the credit that you gave to those first responders, firemen, and so on. And with that, we are on to the next one. But this one was funny. Marshall P said, "This is getting illogical. Dress uniform is now crazy. I'm out." Well, that's a little stupid. We're not calling dress uniforms crazy. We're calling the idea of a uniform calling back to imperial times crazy. You know, just to go through that one a little bit, no one's calling the household guards dress uniforms crazy because it makes historical sense. They're the guard of a monarch, and they're also dressed in traditional uniforms that have lasted for hundreds of years. No one's calling that crazy. What we're calling crazy is recreating a dress uniform from an imperial era that has been so far gone, almost 200 years ago, that it doesn't even make any sense to bring it back unless if you're trying to symbolically make yourself look like a new emperor of Russia. So I think the only thing that's a little bit crazy is you. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Roasted. And moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat. 1 second. We got another one. The bots decided to come in at the last second. But anyways, the next one we have is from Paul Heil, who puts in a $20 donation and says, only accomplishment that Putin has done is immortalize this great man, Zelensky.
And thank you so much for the support. And I would say that that is the one thing that Putin has done, as he's definitely brought Zelensky from being just some guy. I mean, like, no one knew who Zelensky was before this war, unless if you were from Ukraine or had family there. And now everyone in the world knows who Zelensky is. And so I would say that that will probably be the biggest and most important part of Putin's legacy, is making Zelensky an actual world figure. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, and also a really creative way of looking at that. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. So moving on to our next one, we have a $15 super chat from John O, who says, "Greetings from Canberra, Australia." Or excuse me, Canberra, Australia. He says, "I love the work you guys do and keep it up. Now my question is, with winter closing in, do you think the Russian troops will run away because they are so poorly equipped?"
I think the Russians will most likely start to run away or have massive issues. I believe we might actually see, if they are not allowed to run away and they find it too difficult, we may see Russian soldiers start to freeze to death on the front lines and just die from the weather. That's something that I'm thinking we will definitely start seeing in the next few weeks or months, because the Russians have not prepared their soldiers for the winter. They've not given them winter gear or anything similar, and so they'll be meeting the winter with nothing in hand and most likely freezing to death or surrendering to the Ukrainians, so that way they can hopefully get warm and stay alive somehow. And so with that, I hope that does address that question for you. A really good one, as a matter of fact. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So moving on to our next one. And also, folks, I'm kind of hesitant to say it because I don't have an exact source here. But I'll just preface it like this. There's rumors running around that Alexander Dugin is calling for Putin to be overthrown. I'm starting to see it pop up on a few more news sources. They're somewhat questionable news sources, but they're popping up all over the place now. And I also saw it on Twitter as well that people were saying that. But that is not confirmed, just to be clear. But maybe we can get verification on it in the next few days, because that would be big news if it is. And it looks like the Enforcer's looking at it right now too.
Well, this one's from the Hindustan Times, which largely discredits the story right off the bat. So, sadly, we can't really confirm it right now, but if that is the case, that's incredibly interesting. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well while we're looking at it. But once again, if it's from the Hindustan Times, might as well discredit it completely, because they've never been accurate or true about anything. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from Joseph M. Seco, who says, "SMAWS MK-153 HEAA high explosive anti-armor round, 13,000 a rocket, penetrates 24 inches of homogeneous steel versus 250,000 for a javelin. We must have thousands of launchers and hundreds of thousands of rockets. Where are they all?"
And thank you so much once again for the support, Sicko. And I think you are the small lobbyist. Like, I think, like, the last time you came through here, you're like, "Where are the smalls?" You're coming through again, you're like, "Where are the smalls?" And I gotta say, man, I think we ought to send you to Washington to lobby for those smalls, because you are doing a good job here. And also, you made a pretty good sales pitch. I would have to agree. It sounds like the thing can pack quite a punch. The reason why we probably have not seen smalls in Ukraine is because we're trying to see what our most advanced equipment can do while not compromising national security at the same time. Because right now, Ukraine's kind of a sandbox for the United States, and it benefits us both in our sphere of interest and also in our curiosity to see how these things really do perform against the full-on Russian army. We now have frontline and first-hand accounts, experience, and information and data to work off of to see how the Javelin works, to see how the M777's accuracy works and how effective it is on Russian tanks, and many other weapon systems at that. And so based over that, I think that's probably why we haven't seen the smalls. But I'm sure if the United States really started to scrape the barrel in its own way, which we probably never will, and needed to continue to send equipment over, I'm sure the smalls would make their way over there. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Joseph Sicko, and it is really cool to hear that you are a huge fan of the small, and maybe one day we will see some of them over there. We've just never heard about them making it over there yet. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we were able to answer that question fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Next, we have a $12 super chat from Mike D, who says, "In my living room, cutting onions, watching these victory videos. I'm proud to call myself a member of the LSA. Looking forward to tomorrow's fundraiser, and please answer a question on my behalf."
And thank you so much for the support. We will answer that question here in the second, but I got to say, it is an incredibly great thing to see how this liberation has meant so much to so many people down there in Kherson. There's really no words for me to describe it. I always want to go on a little bit of a speech or a soapbox about what it means, but I mean, like, I can't even comprehend what it means. You know, you would have to be there. You would have to have lived in that for almost 9 months to really get it, and for that reason, I can't even go into a speech on what it means for these people. It means more than I can even put into words. But with that, I thank you so much once again. And I'm glad that you are also a proud member of the Lee Spring Army, because we've been here, the entirety of the Lee Spring Army, since day 4, pretty much, covering this war in Ukraine, and we will keep on covering it until this war ends. And thanks to viewer support like yours, we are able to keep doing that. And so with that, we are on to the live chat. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question goes to What Else Happened? Who says, do you think the only graceful way for Putin to remove himself from power would be via offing himself? How else could he be removed?
I believe that the best way for him to be removed would be to resign. I believe that would probably be the easiest way to do it, because then he can't be made out to be a political enemy that needs to be killed because he's already resigned and stepped down. But I would have to say offing himself would probably be the best option, because one, everyone gets a little bit of closure in the world to that sicko story, and the other thing is that it opens up the entire political vacuum across the whole of the Russian Federation as to who's going to lead the country and who can get the underling positions under this new leader, because there would be no influence from Putin whatsoever. He would be dead. And so with that, I hope that answers that live chat fairly well. The only other clean way I can see this going is him resigning, but honestly, I think the first option that you gave would be the best one. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for an interesting live chat, and thank you so much for sponsoring one as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving right along to our next one, we have a $10 donation from Zyper Sniper 1, who returns once again. He says, I'm back after battling COVID for weeks, and as always, I'll give a random person in the chat their question. And welcome back, Zyper. It's good to see you once again, and I'm glad that you got over that COVID.
And thank you so much for the support, Zyper Sniper, and welcome back as well. I was wondering where you've been, because we always notice when people go missing, and it's great to know that you're back. I'm glad to have you back, and I hope you enjoy these streams as we continue to go forward. Of course, the war doesn't stop, and it looks like you don't stop either, because COVID couldn't take you down. And so with that, let's get a live chat question in honor of our boy Zyper Sniper returning back to the Lee Spring Army.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Not Another Shrubbery, who says, why would mobile troops, now POWs, want to be traded back to Russia? Food every day, plating soccer, watching TV has to be better.
They probably don't want to be traded, but they really don't have a say in the matter, because they are practically just monopoly money for Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't give a damn about these Russians, and they shouldn't. And so whenever they want Ukrainian soldiers back, like let's say they want 100 of them, they're like, hey, we have 100 Russian prisoners. We will give them to you in exchange for 100 Ukrainians. And then the Russians go, deal, and the Ukrainians give the Russians back, and the Ukrainians get their own back. That's really... because, of course, the Ukrainians aren't going in, because while the Ukrainians are definitely humanitarians compared to the Russians, they shouldn't really care about the Russians, and they don't go in there and they're like, hey fella, do you want to become a an asylum seeker in Ukraine? No, they don't care like that. They're like, we will give you up. We will throw 100 of y'all back into the jaws of Russia to get one Ukrainian back. And that's why they do get transferred back. It's not because they want to be, it's because the Ukrainians want their own soldiers back home. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. It was a pretty good one, but I hope that you can see, based off of that explanation, why they are just handed over in mass for Ukrainian soldiers in return. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and a pretty interesting question.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from, let's see here, let me get this poll off my screen real quick. Blue Flam 777, who says, did you know that Ukraine has no Walmarts, only Targets? That's a good one.
That's a pretty good one. That's pretty funny. Speaking of which, what kind of grocery stores does Ukraine have? Velmart. Is that like Walmart? Not the same color scheme. Let's take a look at the store. Wow, that's actually really nice. That reminds me of Sprouts, kind of, doesn't it, Matthew?
A little bit. What's in that next picture?
Chicken.
Huh.
It's just, it's like not even packaged. It's just in a massive, like, that's weird. In America, this would be
that's interesting.
packaged. But let's move on to here. What we got here? Bread?
Hot dogs.
Hot dog. A pig in a blanket. Man, it's honestly it's quite a nice store, actually. I'm actually really surprised to see that they got such a nice grocery store here in Ukraine. Oh, we can see sausages here. We can also see one guy holding some sausages. Let's see here. What else do we have? We have
the cold bar.
A cold bar. Oh, that's really nice. Once again, the meat. El Dorado, which means the gold in Spanish. And we can see, oh no, Huawei. Huawei. Oh, that's scary. But they also got Samsung. What else do they have here? Vehicle.
Oh, they got the models.
They have vehicle. But they got some toys. They got some pretty decent toys, actually.
What? How does Operator Starsky say it?
A vehicle. Yeah.
A vehicle.
I've got inside the vehicle. It's very hard to do it the way Starsky does it, and of course, we're making fun of him speaking English, but we can't even speak Ukrainian, so I think you would have one up on us in that joking battle. But let's move on to the next clip. Wow, those are some really nice cuts of steak.
Dang.
Like quality
stuff. Wait, what's the price? What's the price? Zoom in real quick on it.
Let's see here. Let's see. Looks like 142.47. Let's pull that up. UA to USD. 147. So it's $4 for that thing. That is cheap.
And that's a good rate on that meat.
That is a good deal right there. That is so freaking cheap. It's like $12 for that in the United States right now. It's like the third the cost. We need to go to Ukraine.
$12 in the United States?
Yeah, well, it's more than that even. I mean,
that'd be like 35 or 40 in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, like, how it's like 2 inches thick.
Golly. That's a whole, like, I'm about to say ribeye, but no, it's definitely not a ribeye.
Man, I'm telling you.
It's a Brontosaurus burger.
I think that's a T-bone right there. I don't know what kind of cut that one is, though, but it is a good-looking piece of meat, I can tell you that. I would eat that thing like no tomorrow. But, man, they got nothing but good stuff in this grocery store, and it looks like it's all at a nice, affordable price. Also, we can see this lady here at the bakery. And they got the croissant. All kinds of croissant. Moving on down to here. I mean, like, man, I gotta tell you, I'm really impressed with grocery stores around the world. I haven't seen a bad one yet. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. I know you're just kidding there about the Walmarts and Velmarts and all that stuff, but still, I had to take a look at the grocery store in Ukraine, and it did not disappoint. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Danny Van Strelen, who says, experts are saying winter will slow down Ukrainian forces. Don't you think they will take up more momentum? They are well equipped, good morale, while the Russians are equipped worse than homeless people.
I got to tell you, the experts have been wrong a lot. And of course, I'm not always right on everything. The Ukrainians have proven me wrong on all of my predictions that I had for them over the past 2 days. All of those were flipped upside down. And I gotta tell you, the experts don't know what they're talking about. The experts said that the Ukrainians would lose in a week or 3 days, and then they got proven wrong on that. They've gotten proven wrong on almost everything so far in this war. I don't think winter's going to slow them down. If anything, it's going to speed them up because they're going to be going up against a crumbling, freezing, and starving Russian army that will not be surviving through the winter. And so, in my opinion, I believe the experts are entirely wrong. I believe the Ukrainian army will probably be moving even faster in the winter than they were in the summer due to the Russians just falling apart in the cold. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And if anything has proven anyone wrong lately, the speed at which the Ukrainians moved has definitely proved everyone wrong. There were experts out there saying the Russians, and let me remind you this, 2 weeks ago, when I was saying that the Russians were withdrawing from Kherson, and it looks like they were going to be giving up that side of the river, there were experts out there, and a lot of YouTubers, because there's a lot of YouTubers out there that just bandwagon with the experts, that just, listen to them, and then they just repeat what they say. And there was a lot of YouTubers, I guess, that heard what I was saying and then went on their own channels and said, no, he's wrong. They're not withdrawing from Kherson. There's no sign of that, no evidence of that. And then they were proven completely wrong when we saw that the Russians had been withdrawing. And then they completed their withdrawal just about a day or two ago, and they didn't even complete it then. There's still soldiers stuck on the other side. And so with that, I hope that gives a pretty decent precedent as to why... and of course I'm not saying the experts are always wrong. They do get some things right, but the experts can't always be trusted, much like I can't always be trusted, because I do get stuff wrong as well, like how fast the Ukrainians would take Kherson, and what it would look like. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat from RH, who puts in a $10 donation, and says, Enforcer, look at Puzata Hata. It's my favorite restaurant in Ukraine.
How do you spell it?
Puzata, and then a separate word, Hata.
It's a chain restaurant. There's a lot of them in Kyiv. So let's check out this one here near the Bessarabian Market. Let's drop down a street view there. Oh wow, I like that building. It kind of reminds me of some of the buildings in London, kind of like Harrods in a way. But let's check out this Pizzata Hata. So we see here a nice sausage and some kind of soup, and also what appears to be scalloped potatoes. Also, really cool restaurant. It's like a traditional Ukrainian restaurant, like with the whitewashed walls and all that stuff. That's really cool. That is a really neat restaurant. I love the theme.
Looks like Walt Disney World.
It kind of does, doesn't it? I like it.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got what appears to be mashed potatoes and some kind of a fried thing. We also got a vegetable plate and something else. This might be kvass. I'm not really sure.
Whatever that drink is, I can tell you right now that looks like it'd be good.
That thing looks like it would be busting. Just the packaging of it looks really good.
Yeah, it's like undescript and like just sort of strange looking.
Oh, look at the pies. Man.
Oh, they got that strawberry jelly stuff on the top of it. Looks very good.
Man, you know, that reminds me of like that school strawberry stuff that they put on top of those cheesecakes in school. I mean, like, for some reason, that stuff was to die for, like the strawberry topping stuff like that. And if that is the same kind, I would go over to Ukraine and volunteer right now just to get a little bit of that cake right there. But moving on to this, this is a really cool restaurant. I'm glad you recommended taking a look at this, because I'm really in love with this idea. And if we ever go to Ukraine, I think I will try and go to this restaurant and eat at it, because it just looks so freaking good. I mean,
oh, look at that green cake.
The green cake. This one?
Yeah, that's different.
That is different.
It's pistachio, I think.
I think it is. Yeah, it is. It's a pistachio cake. Oh, I wonder what that tastes like. And also,
there's only one way to find out.
Also, I like this guy here who is about to bludgeon this cow to death.
The most violent picture on the wall. Never know.
Honestly, though, it's how the food's made. I don't understand why people in America eat chicken. You know, but like just as a critique on America as a whole, like people will eat chicken and then they'll drive by a chicken truck, you know, like that has chickens in it, and they're like, "Oh, look at those cute chickens," and then they see Tyson on the truck, you know, like it's a Tyson food truck, and they're like, "Uh-oh, oh God, that's terrible." It's like you're gonna be eating it in a week, you know. It's like what in the world's, anyways. Still, the food looks amazing, and I would definitely eat at this restaurant. And also, I love the theming of it. It looks just like a cool place. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and also recommending this restaurant to us. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have another super chat from Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a $10 donation this time and says, "Coffee fund for the Enforcer and Matt and Slava Ukraine. Great work as always, and keep it up."
And thank you so much for the support to the Coffee Fund. It helps us to keep alive and it helps us to keep this thing running. And of course, thank you so much once again for being around for so freaking long. You've been around forever. And so with that, we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Enforcer, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we're going through some lag there for a minute, but hopefully everybody can hear me now. So up next, we have another super chat from Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a $10 donation once again and says, "I just got my firearm license on pistols, so I'm ready if Russia invades my homeland, Norway, and my axe is also ready."
Hey!
And that is pretty cool. Your homeland, Norway. I don't know how that works with firearms. I didn't even know you could have one.
Let's see. Let's pull that up. Norwegian firearm laws. See, here in America, the firearm culture, and it is very different from state to state even, is entirely different. In America, once you turn 18, you can buy long rifles and shotguns, and then when you turn 21, you can buy pistols. You don't, in our state, in Alabama, you don't need any kind of license or any kind of reason to buy one. You just go and buy one as long as you're not a criminal or have any strikes against your record. But let's see here. Regulations. Firearms in Norway are regulated by the Firearm Weapons Act, which is a new secondary law in effect the 1st of July 2009, providing more detailed regulation. The Act covers all firearms, air pressure weapons, and some exotic arms as the Act defines. All weapons that would be regulated must have two things in common. They must eject a projectile mechanically and use some form of propellant to perform the ejection. The Act includes military-type weapons, flare guns, and replicas that can easily be converted to working firearms. Guns owned and operated under the responsibility of the armed forces and the police are exempt from the Civilian Weapons Act. The detailed interpretation of the law is laid out in another regulation. Suppressors are not regulated under Norwegian law and may be purchased by anyone. It's the same in Britain as well. Suppressors are also legal while hunting and seen as a necessity for more comfortable shooting and to lower the environmental impact of noise. If you didn't know, Matthew, in Britain, it's actually required in some places that you must have a suppressor for your firearms to meet sound regulations.
I wish they had that provision in the United States.
I really wish they did. I don't know why in the world in the United States suppressors are so tough to get a hold of, because I don't think the people who made the laws understand that a suppressor doesn't make the gun silent. It just muffles the noise a good bit, but you can still tell where the noise is coming from.
Hell, I'm still waiting on mine, and I put an order in for it 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, hell. And then, the ATF can take their time. That's a whole thing. Anyways, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, let's see here. Has a large population of hunters. Of course, it's Norway. Make a bear part. There is a total ban on automatic firearms for civilians. Unlike the United States, you can get an automatic firearm in the United States as long as it was made before 1985, and you get a tax stamp for it, unless they fall into the collector category. Oh, well, you can actually get one. Modification of semi-automatic guns into fully automatic without the consent of the police is a felony crime, like it is in America. Handguns have some caliber restrictions. A Smith & Wesson Model 500, for example, is illegal due to its high power. Oh, come on. Come on, that's taking the fun out of the whole thing. And the Smith & Wesson's cool. The Smith & Wesson 500's cool because you can literally break all the bones in your wrist if you fire it wrong. I mean, that takes away the whole fun of the thing. But let's see. Especially rifles. Each caliber must be used in some type of competition to be allowed. Let's see here. Ownership. Unless one has officially documented a use for the gun. Let's see.
So it looks like Zyper has gone through some extensive training of some sort to get it.
It does appear so. It's really interesting to read into firearm laws of other countries, and good on you to get a pistol. I don't know what kind you got. I hope it's a good one. I actually have a 1911, a Thesis 1911. It's like the budget kind of 1911 because, I don't know why 1911s got so expensive in modern history, but they used to just be the rugged, get-to-it working gun of the United States. You can see a picture of it right here. It's this exact kind. And I like them. I like the 1911. I also like it due to the amount of safeties it has. It has a thumb grip safety on it, where your hand actually has to be wrapped around the pistol grip for all of the safeties to be disengaged where you can fire it. And I find that to be quite nice because that means that for some reason you had some kind of goober that got a hold of your gun, like a friend that was goofing off a little bit too much, he wouldn't be able to blow his brains out because he flicked the safety off and was aiming it right at his eyeball. So I like it for that reason. I like 1911s for a load of reasons. I don't know which one you got. But huge congrats to you, Cyber Sniper, for getting one, and I hope that you enjoy it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr. once again, and he says, "It's me again. It seems like the Winter War 2.0, yet this time it's Ukraine instead of the Finns. Looks like Ukraine is going to keep the full pressure on the southern front and probably peel some units off to put into the Bakhmut area."
And thank you so much for the support, and I would agree with those assessments entirely. It looks like they are probably going to be trying to push onto the southern bank of the Dnipro River and get a foothold over there right now. And if they do that, that's going to be insane. But at the same time, I do think they'll probably be lessening the amount of forces they have down there and moving a couple of them up towards Bakhmut. Although, I'm not really sure about that, though, because it does appear that they are holding Bakhmut with the amount of defenders they have right now. And so I don't really think they would need any more. But then again, I might be wrong, and they might see an ability to both thwart the offensive going on here right now and also counterattack at the same time and regain some ground. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support, and also some pretty interesting input right there.
All right, and up next, a big shout out to Homer Lapguard for putting in a $10 donation, but without a comment. But Homer, thank you very much for being a longtime channel viewer and for supporting us once again, and we do very much appreciate it. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Oats Air, who says, take a question from the chat, Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support and also enjoying the stream as well. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat in your name. And so with that, Вічна слава всім, слава Україні. And let's hear that live chat question.
All right, so the live chat question goes to Michael Wilkes, who says, are you concerned about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant when the front gets hot? Any attack on Crimea surely needs a front from this direction, question mark.
I have a feeling it won't be of too much concern. I think that if the Russians started to be pressured in this area, they may just give it up, because at that point, think about it. If the Ukrainians moved on the P-37 down towards Dnipro and then over towards Velika Znamyanka, they could just encircle Enerhodar and starve out the forces there, and so they would most likely be forced to retreat from that area if the Ukrainian advance did start to make their way towards Crimea. And so I don't really feel like it's too much of a problem, actually, although it has been something that's been highly feared throughout the entirety of this war, is that something could happen to that power plant. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And that is a great question, and I can be wrong on that one. They could try and do something to the power plant, but by and large, considering that all Russian threats have fallen flat, including blowing up the Novokakhovka Dam and forcing floodwaters down in Kherson, killing thousands of people, I don't really think any of their threats need to be taken seriously. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Greg Carmen for putting in a $10 donation, but he did not leave a comment. But Greg, we do appreciate that support very much. And also, real quick, I want to address the poll that was put up a while back. Will Vlad Putin ever resign? 80% said no, 12% said yes, and 8% said I don't know. And I'm going to be within the 80% that said no. Putin will never resign. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll say he will never resign, but I do think he'd kill himself. I think he would do that before he ever resigned. So there is a way for him to get out. It's just that it's not going to end any good for him. And so with that, I hope we answered that poll fairly well. And it's good to know that that's unanimous. I'm glad to know that everyone's on the same page there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Up next, we have another $10 super chat from Zyper Sniper 1, who says, I have Browning Buck 22 and a CZ75 Shadow 2 9mm. Nice choice. And yeah, I had to go to a pistol club for 6 months and then wait 3 weeks for the police to approve the license. And man, that kind of sucks.
And I've got to be, I'm going to have to air something here in a second. But anyways, this is a pretty neat little pistol. A 22. And if you got this one, I really like this one with the wood grip on it. I don't know what kind of wood that is, but I like it. And so let's go to the CC75 Shadow. CC75 Shadow. And I gotta say, this one's not that bad looking either. I don't think I've ever seen this one before, though. But it is pretty cool looking, I will say. And so, nice job on getting both of those. Wait a minute, he said Shadow 2. Oh, wait a minute, that is a Shadow 2. And so, thank you so much.
AZ makes a nice pistol.
They do. They make a pretty nice pistol. It's a Czech company as well, and that's what's really interesting is that it's from the Czech Republic. But anyways, I do thank you so much for the support, and I gotta be honest with you, coming from where I come from and hearing that people have to go through 6 months of being in a pistol club and then wait 3 weeks for the police to approve a license, I'm not really a big fan of that kind of stuff. I know it's a country by country thing, but here in America, you know, of course, with the Second Amendment and all that kind of stuff around, it's almost expected that owning a firearm should be quite easy to do. And of course, you know, everyone's going to throw up, well, about, you know, the lunatics and all that. Well, I'm going to say this, and this is the only thing I'm going to say, because obviously I own guns, a lot of y'all own guns. I think everyone owns a gun that watches the stream. I'm not really sure, but it's a little bit odd to me that you know, guns are always the thing that's blamed, because you know, when someone gets drunk and drives a car, we don't blame the car for running into someone else and killing him. We always blame the driver, and I feel like that ought to kind of fall under the same category with guns. Now, one thing I will say though is that I think we ought to find, because there's no way to really take the crazies out of society, we ought to find some way to maybe keep a vigilant eye on the crazies, make sure that they don't get a hold of guns, but at the same time, I just see guns as guns. I've got plenty of them. You know, I've got I think 3 of them behind me right now, and they just are what they are, you know. But anyways, with that, we are on, and also Al Dunlap says America treats guns like toys. To be honest, I mean, you know, I just treat them like anything else. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again, Cyber Sniper, for sharing with us your little collection of guns.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops. He says, hello to the Discord crew, Raccoon Squad, and the Mod Squad. Hey, fellas, we will be having a public suggestion box for the Christmas contest. Look out for it in the Discord. No spiders. Texas stinks. Oklahoma #1. Muhaha, quack.
And thank you so much for the support, Psyops. And of course, thank you so much for helping out with the moderating in here. And also, Matthew, it seems like we may have a really interesting poll to throw up about gun ownership, if anyone owns a gun in here or not, because seeing a lot of people saying, I don't own one, and that's really interesting. But anyways, let's see, the Raccoon Squad know who they are. Pretty cool squad. And the Mod Squad. Hey, let's give it up to the Mod Squad. And also, let's see, we will be having, also, real quick, everyone, Psyops brought this up. This is a great thing to bring up. We are going to be having some kind of a Christmas competition. We don't know what it is yet, so we're taking suggestions in the Discord. And so if you want to hop in there and give a suggestion for what the Christmas contest ought to be, hop in the Discord and start sending in the ideas, because whichever one gets the most votes behind it, that's the contest that we'll be going with. We haven't really figured out the prize yet. We are still talking about that in the background, but I think it will be pretty neat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops. Also, thank you once again for stirring that pot of hating Texas, because you're an Oklahoman. There's a lot of people who have now taken up the defense of Texas, and I think we might be getting into an all-out war if Oates Air is here, although he's not from Texas. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, Psyops. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, how quick is it going to be until we get that new poll, Matthew?
It's being written now.
All right, and so can't wait for that one to go up and see what kind of results we get. And so with that, while Matthew's getting ready for that poll, we'll be waiting for him to throw up the next one. And once again, I'm sorry, everyone, that I don't really sound that energetic during this question segment. My voice, my throat specifically, feels like it's caving in, and I don't want it to cave in. So I'm trying to keep it calm and make sure that it doesn't do that. We're still waiting for that poll. It should be up any second now. And we see Oates here. He's starting the war.
Yeah.
And also, real quick, just to speak of this, because this is the one thing I will say on anything, is that some of y'all, it seems like a decent amount of y'all, and well, actually, a lot of folks in here do own guns. 70% of y'all right now, according to the poll, own guns. Well, now it's only 48%. We'll wait until that poll really fleshes itself out here in a bit, but if you do not own a gun and you live in a country where you can't get one easily, I would highly recommend getting one. It's, of course, a great way to defend yourself from nuts, because, hey, you know, like it or hate it, there's nuts out there, and they're pretty dangerous people. And, while you can have a higher moral plane than you will still have to be brought down to theirs if they rob your home or something, or they come in there. And of course, I just find them fun. I don't use them for home defense or anything. I gotta be honest with y'all, I find home defense to be one of the lamest reasons to own a gun, because the chances of getting robbed in the places we live is so low, you may as well not even own one for that. I own mine for target shooting and also clay shooting as well. It's a fun little hobby. Like, I guess you could say that clay shooting, the closest thing I could relate clay shooting to is like darts or bowling. And I would honestly have to say it's a lot funner. Philip Fixa says it's too expensive a hobby. No, it's not. No, it's not at all. You can get yourself a real cheap shotgun. Shotguns go for $350. You can get a semi-automatic one for about $350. Go to a clay shooting range and have a whole load of fun with your friends. Just make sure to stay safe, though, because unlike bowling and throwing darts, you can kill yourself with a gun quite easily. So as long as you're safe with it, you can have a load of fun. And I'd highly recommend, if you haven't ever shot a gun, go shoot one, because it's a really interesting experience. And if something is available to you by right in your country, I always say that you should go and exercise all of your rights. You ought to tell a cop not to come in your house. You ought to go and get a gun if you can. You ought to go and try and test the limits of free speech. It's a right you have. Why not use it? But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have a $10 super chat from Richard Daniel Jr., who says, Slava Ukraine, and please take a live chat question.
And thank you so much for the support. And we will make sure to take a live chat as well. And also, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, what do we got for a live chat?
And also, real quick, I saw Candy Nose say in the live chat, does Mr. Corgi own a handgun? And yes, Mr. Corgi is strapped.
Mr. Corgi
but anyways,
is strapped.
Yes. But the live chat goes to I Am Gift Bearer, who says, what's going on in Zaporizhia right now?
What's going on in Zaporizhia? I wish I got a little bit clarification. In Zaporizhia, it appears that nothing's happening. In the Zaporizhia Oblast, the Russians are taking casualties, but the front line is stable. And so, with that, I hope that answers the question. I mean, that was a very short answer. I hate to make it that short, but there's really not a lot that's going on in the entirety of the Zaporizhia Oblast. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. I hate that it's a short answer, though. I kind of feel bad about that, but that's really all I have to work with on Zaporizhia. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Zyper Sniper 1 once again. Actually, two of them. And he says, we have more guns in Norway than the USA.
I don't think so. Gun ownership.
Man, we got a lot of guns in the USA.
There's more guns in the USA than people, actually, by number. Let's see here. Gun ownership percentage in Norway. Percentage. Let's see here. Estimate. Wow, actually 28.8% of the Norwegian population owns a firearm, or there's 28.8 firearms for every 100 people, so around 29 guns for 100 people. So let's pull up the US, because I think this will blow you away. Let's see, what is the gun ownership rate? Let's see. We have 120.5, so really 121 guns for every 100 people in America. We own half of the world's guns. So it's really weird, you know, in the United States, because not a lot of people own guns in America. It's like, I think it's like half of the population owns a gun, but the half that owns them owns a lot of them. Like, once you get one gun and you get into it, you can't really just settle with one, because you're always just interested in the next one. Like, for me, the first gun I ever got, and y'all probably get a good laugh out of this, was a Brown Bess musket. And I still have it, actually. It's behind me. It's this one right here. I got it, I shot it, I was like, that's really cool. I turned 18, because this was actually given to me as a gift when I started reenacting. I turned 18, and then I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go get a real gun now. So then I got a Henry 22 lever action, which we can find right here, hopefully. Yeah, this is the one right here. It wasn't the silver-plated one, but I got that. And then, of course, you just start moving further on down the line. At one point, I actually had this cool little MP40 replica. It was a semi-automatic 9mm replica MP40. It cost like nothing. It was a really crappy gun, but it was really cool just because of the look of it. I was like, this is neat. And then I sold it because it sucked. And then, I mean, like, they're just cool. And also, especially, I'm not really one to get modern guns. Matthew's the one to get modern guns. I think he has a AR-15, Daniel Defense M4A1, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yes, I do. And also have a Glock. And that's actually it for now.
And so we can see right here, a Daniel Defense M4A1. Really nice AR. We have gone and shot
That's
it.
exact color and everything, too.
Really neat one. Really cool. I'm not really into modern guns, though, so my collection of guns is a 1903 Springfield. And I'm not into modern guns, and, you know, and some of y'all are probably like, oh, this is telling me a little bit about politics. Honestly, I'm not really into modern guns just because I don't really find them to have character. So I actually own a 1903, just like this one. Exact same, literally an exact same 1903, same stock and everything. Own a Krag Jorgensen, and we're going down a big rabbit hole, but I have a Krag Jorgensen. Really love these rifles here, the Krags. They're so neat. There were so few of them. There's only 50,000 of these things in existence worldwide, and I have one of them. It was really hard to find it. And also, you can actually see that Colonel Klink right here in Hogan's Heroes actually was using a Krag, because I guess it was too difficult for them to find a prop Car 98, and so they gave him a Krag instead because it kind of looks similar.
Show him a picture of a honey badger.
Let's see, a honey badger gun.
Pistol.
Oh yeah, honey badger pistol. Let me pull that up because the ATF labels things weirdly. But this is a honey badger pistol. That's a very small picture. This is a honey badger pistol.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. I love a honey badger.
Also, Renegade 777 just said 303 Lee Enfield. I have so wanted a Lee Enfield my entire life. The only problem with that one, though, is that the ammunition for it gets incredibly expensive because it's very hard to find 303 ammunition because the British literally just burned it up in the 60s shooting off of Vickers. They shot 6 million rounds out of a freaking Vickers, and that was 6 million rounds we could have bought now, and they've just wasted it. But it was interesting because we found out how far Vickers could be taken before it got worn out, and even after firing 6 million rounds continuously, it could have kept on firing probably another 24 million rounds. It's unbelievable the quality of a Vickers, but that's a Lee Enfield. The Mark III version, which is my favorite. I don't like the Jungle Carbine Mark IV version. I'm not a big fan of it. I really like the Mark III better. But with that, I hope you have enjoyed this little rabbit hole. It looks like the poll has had 723 votes. And can we go over that poll real quick, Matthew?
45% said that yes, they are the happy owners of a Fire Stick. 27% said no, and I can legally get one. 15% said no, and I cannot legally get one. And 13% said I never want one.
And a really interesting result. It was actually like an actual like staircase from the top result to the bottom one in terms of who voted for what, which is really interesting. And I would have to say, let's see. It's really interesting to see that 45% of y'all actually do own a firearm. 27% of y'all can, which is really interesting. It's just really interesting poll to see. I was just doing that out of curiosity, but I'm, of course I own guns. Big fan of them. I like them. Not getting into the political side of things, but I just have a passion for them. I think they're cool, especially from the historical sides of things. If you're a historical firearms collector, and because of that reason, I'd recommend everyone gets into it because I have fun with it. I can't really see where anyone wouldn't have fun with it. But of course, just make sure to be safe because it can get dangerous if you act like you don't have any common sense around them. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Rado Kudre, who says, "You guys are awesome, and thanks for having the channel."
And thank you so much for the support, Rado, and I thank you so much for enjoying this channel. We go down some rabbit holes sometimes, and that's probably the most tone rabbit hole we've ever had, but I thank you so much for enjoying this channel nonetheless and helping us to keep doing what we do. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a super chat once more from Psyops, who puts in a $20 donation this time, and Psyops is trying a new marketing tactic. He says, "Did you guys know that Enforcer Matt and Enforcer are currently single? And also that is unconfirmed. Want to talk late into the night with them? Well, come on to the Discord, ask questions, watch videos, and meme on Matt's hairless face." Oh my god. Oklahoma #1. Muhaha.
And I actually thought you were going to just the one that was put in, so I've already gotten to that one. I guess we'll just do that one next. But I thank you so much for the support, side. So we can neither confirm nor deny whether we're single or not. That's something that is classified in a deep Lee Spring Army secret. But I thank you so much once again for the support. And if y'all do want to talk to us about that for some reason, one or another, you can join the Discord. I very rarely get on there. I try whenever I can, but I can't make any guarantees about like a regular schedule of getting on Discord. But thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And let's move on to the next one from Psyops real quick, Matthew.
All right, and the next one from Psyops said, "My gun, best gun, Smith & Wesson 460 Magnum. It's my boomstick. Look it up and marvel. Muhaha also has Mosin Nagant." And I gotta tell you, Psyops, Enforcer, have you already pulled that one up?
I have the Smith & Wesson 460.
Okay, I don't think that's the one I was thinking about. I think I'm thinking about the Smith & Wesson 500,
Jesus
which is absolute
Christ,
beast.
Look how big that thing is.
Okay, yeah, that is the one I'm thinking about then. You're the guy that shows up to the range and like freaks everybody out because it's so loud. Enforcer, you remember that old man? You remember that old man that showed up to the range? We were there one time, and he showed up and had a 500 Magnum and was shooting it on the range, and it was like freaking everybody out. Dude, every time he would shoot it.
It flashed so bright, everyone went blind for a second every time it fired. Like it was a gun. It was a hell of a gun. If you really do have this gun, Psyops, I got to give it to you, man. All credit to you. That thing's made to kill tanks, and I don't even know how people shoot those things, honestly. Because one thing I will say, and let me actually check this out real quick. 1 second, everyone. So, y'all gonna hear me. I'm bringing over something real quick to tell y'all. I have a. Let me make sure I'm correct on this one. Believe it or not, Matthew, you know how we were talking about CZ, the CZ pistols?
Yes.
My double barrel clay gun is actually a CZ gun as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I was just looking at it.
I didn't know that either.
I have a CZ coach gun. Let me see if it CZ. Oh, they actually
CZ coach gun. That doesn't even ring a bell. I didn't know they made shotgun.
It's this one right here. I have that shotgun right beside me. I'm actually touching it right now. Y'all can't see that, but this is the shotgun that I have for clay shooting, and I think I think these guns are pretty cool. One thing though that I'm trying to get to with this is that I will never ever shoot a shotgun with a pistol grip. I know it's possible. I've seen people do it, and it is a thing, but I love to know that I can actually shoulder whatever I'm firing onto my shoulder, you know, and that's just the thing for me. It helps with accuracy, it helps with keeping it stable, it helps managing recoil. I find stocks to be incredibly beneficial, especially on heavier caliber or heavier kick weapons like a 12 gauge shotgun or that massive ass revolver that you just showed us right there. But still, I mean, like, I got to give you credit, man. That is unbelievable thing if you really have one of those and are using it. And also, he also has a Mosin Nagant, and I have a hatred for Mosins. I was made to look like a fool when the bolt wouldn't open, and the range master had to bring over a ball peen hammer and smack the thing open. So I hate those things now, but I mean, like, you know, I guess they kind of work. And they're also really cheap. I think they're still like $300 or $350 at any local gun store. So they are pretty easy to get. But with that, I thank you so much. Oh my God, it's a bubbled up Mosin.
Oh man, that's actually pretty cool looking.
That doesn't actually look that bad. You could pass that as like something comparable to a Remington 700 at that point, but it's still a Mosin underneath, and that's what scares me. But anyways, with that,
wait a minute though, Psyops, how's your wrist though? Like how's it doing after shooting that pistol? Because that's a doozy. The fella that we saw at the shooting range with a 500 one time, every time he shot, and he was like 70 years old. I don't know why he had that huge pistol. He was in there, he would shoot it, he would like, the recoil is humongous and the flash is huge. He would start shaking every time he shot it.
And also,
and he'd have to take a break to come back to like compose himself again, and then he'd come back and shoot it.
Also, he had a laser on the thing, and he would have the laser centered right into the middle of the target. He would fire, and the round would almost be on the very edge of the target in the far corners. like it was crazy. Also, I would really like to get a Nitro 500.
I want a Desert Eagle, but I know I can't handle the recoil.
The 500 Nitro
Oh
Express.
my God.
This thing's made to kill elephants, and I honestly want one. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, you know, these rounds are no joke. Look how big that thing is.
Dang.
That's a 700 Nitro. At that point, you're shooting naval guns that are on rifle stocks. I mean, it's crazy. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Sipes, and allowing us to go down a pretty interesting rabbit hole.
All right, so up next, we have a $10 super chat once again from Zyper Sniper 1, who says, honestly, in Norway, it's illegal
can you say that
to
again?
shoot a robber or... so if Russia... say what now?
Can you say that again? You had some weird audio thing happen there.
Say what now?
Can you say that again? Can you reread that super chat real quick?
Okay, yeah, you were breaking up on me too, I think. But Zyper Sniper 1 said, honestly, in Norway, shoot a robber or a...
It's happening again. I think... Can you get really close to the mic, just eat it and read it real quick?
What was that?
Can you get close to the mic, eat it, reread it real quick for me, please?
All right, I think we're having some really bad connection issues, but I think I heard you that time. Zyper Sniper 1 says, honestly, in Norway, it's illegal to shoot a robber or a criminal. So if Russia invades Norway, but Russians to sleep illegally.
And I thank you for the support. But I think, honestly, if the Russians were invading Norway, I don't think they would care much if you were breaking the law getting them. But still, I mean, like, it's good to know that you are conscientious and making sure to try and follow the law as best you can. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. Honestly, Matthew, wouldn't that be funny if Zyper Sniper did shoot a Russian that was running into his home and he called up the cops in the middle of an invasion, was like, I just shot a Russian, you know, like that would be the funniest thing ever. But with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So up next, we have a $6 super chat from Kikairi Firehawk, who says, Nessie in the search bar. How awesome is that? Starsky's special naval unit is here, lols.
And I thank you for the support. And also, it is pretty cool to see that Starsky's special naval unit has arrived. And also, speaking of naval, and that reminds me of the Dnipro water crossing, I have seen some people going and coming in here and going, what's up with that title? And if you just rewind to the very beginning of the stream, we cover it literally as soon as the news comes on. So just go back and check it out. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And also, when I say lols, I saw Magic Sky Girl say lols. No, it's like LOL, like laugh out loud, but I say lols because that's what it was. That's what it was spelled like. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from Technical Fool, who says, I ran out of non-alcoholic beers, so have a dandelion and a burdock.
And I think
non-alcoholic beer. Why would you drink beer if it was non-alcoholic? It tastes nasty.
I've never really had beer, so I don't really know. But
they make it non-alcoholic beer?
Huh.
This is confusing.
That sounds like some Star Trek thing. Synthahol. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. I can't believe that there is such a thing as non-alcoholic beer. And I would drink, but I don't drink. Mostly because I'm scared that if I, you know, and this is largely what keeps me away from doing everything. I'm scared if I do it, I'll become like a alcoholic or, you know, like a drug addict or something like that. So I just don't touch any of it because I'm scared of going down any of those rabbit holes and not coming back. And those aren't really the fun rabbit holes where it's just like factual, trivial stuff. Those are the rabbit holes where you might go back and never return. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I would take you up on the offer if it wasn't for that. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. So up next, we have a $5 super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr. once again, who says, must be fun living in a world of delusion and fantasy land. That's one very living, a legend in one's own mind.
And what's that in reference to?
I do not know.
Well, I thank you for the support. Sadly, I don't know what you're referencing.
Maybe he's talking about the Russians.
Maybe he's talking about Putin. I'm like, I don't know who's at. I'm supposing it's talking about Putin, and if it is talking about Putin, I would agree with that. It must be bizarre to live in a fantasy world like he is, because I don't even think he knows what's really going on in Russia beyond his office. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And also, Matthew, how many super chats do we have left?
We have, let's see, 5, 10, 15. We have 15 left.
All right, and so before we move on to the next one, Matthew, I actually saw Rorus Maximus saying, you own guns, but you worry about drinking? Yeah, because one thing about drinking is that drinking messes with you neurologically. You know, like you can really get hooked on drinking like you get hooked on smoking or anything else. Guns, on the other hand...
Phonics.
Yeah, hooked on phonics, too. Matthew, oh my god, come on. But anyways, with guns, you can't get neurologically hooked. They're just a thing. It's kind of like driving a car or, you know, going on walks, I guess. You know, it's very similar. You can just, like, with a gun, you can go shooting at a range, but it's not something where you're like, you know, you start scratching your neck and going, I gotta get my fix. I gotta go to a gun range now. You know, it's not like that. You know, so I'm perfectly fine with that because it's something I can just drop and walk away from. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
You're right. So up next, we have a $10 super chat from Zyper Sniper 1 once again, who says, if you had an S&W 460 Magnum in Norway, you would be arrested on the spot. But we newly allowed to own 50 caliber pistol, so Norway gun laws are whacked. Excuse me.
Oh, and I thank you so much for the support. That is kind of funny to hear that you would be arrested on the spot. There was actually a law that was going to be passed at a time that was going to outlaw 50 caliber guns here in America, which was really interesting. We're not getting into the politics of it, but it was really interesting to see that there was an attempt at a time to start limiting calibers. That was about, I think, 4 years ago at this point. But that's also really interesting to hear that you can own a 50 caliber, but you can't own a 46 caliber. Because it just seems odd. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and also sharing that with us. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Kevin Kincaid 2, who says, I've been told that Ukraine is running out of manpower and weapons. Is any of that true?
Ukraine is not running out of manpower as far as we know, and they aren't running out of weapons. Otherwise, they wouldn't be pulling off the stunts they're doing right now. They would be about as desperate as the Russians, and they are certainly not on that level. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Up next, we have a $5 super chat from Matthew Drum, who says, do you guys still see new videos from the same soldiers that made videos from the beginning? I wonder how they're doing.
We do occasionally. I haven't seen Belarusian Mustache Man around a lot, although we always get the update video here and there showing he's still alive. But haven't really seen a lot of it. Like Vesquez, for example, which was around during the Battle of Bucha Hospital Irpin. We haven't seen him a lot, and I think that's because he went home. But with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
Moving right along, up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, Dr. Phillips, Performing Arts Center, watched since day 17. There is no other country more kindred to America than Ukraine. There are our European brothers.
And thank you so much for the support. And I would have to say that Ukraine has definitely made itself a close friend of the United States, and the United States has made itself a close friend of Ukraine's. And I would have to say it's a really interesting relationship, and hopefully it'll continue after this war, regardless of what the conclusion is, whether Ukraine remains neutral or joins the West. Hopefully they'll have a very strong connection with the United States. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And we have a $5 super chat from Anthony, who says, Enforcer, do you know about the 2002 Skinalev air show disaster?
I think I may have heard, I think I know the one you're talking about. I remember some kind of air disaster in 2002, but I don't know the exact details. I believe that was, well, let me just pull that up. What was the name of it again?
The 2002 Skinalev air show disaster.
Skinalev.
Leave.
Can you spell that for me?
SKNYLIV.
I believe this is one where the massive aircraft formation had a... Oh, wait a minute. No, this is actually the Ukrainian Air Force Su-27. There was that video of it where a pilot drove into the ground and the pilot ejected. And
yeah. There he is ejecting right there.
Yeah, and it looks like it's flying right into a crowd of onlookers. So...
Oh, my goodness.
Let's see. A fatality, 77 on the ground.
Both
of the pilots ejected to safety. And there was 543 people injured on the ground, and there was the 2 pilots that were injured, but they both lived.
You know what's probably coming after the recent disaster that just happened? Was it today or yesterday?
Today.
Today? They're probably going to start cracking down on air shows.
They're probably going to start cracking down on them. That's usually where a lot of crazy stuff happens. But still, that's... Yeah, I didn't know about this one. I thought it was the formation of aircraft that was flying some kind of weird air show maneuver and ended up running into each other and destroying like 5 aircraft in a matter of a second. But with that, I thank you for the support and also letting us take a look at this. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have a $5 super chat once again from Matthew Drum, who says, I miss a lot of the guys that did videos early on in the war. They're always doing funny stuff.
And I thank you for the support. And while they were doing funny stuff, there's a lot of soldiers nowadays that are also doing funny stuff too. And I've got to say, the Ukrainians and their morale is unbeatable. I honestly got to say, I've never seen a drop in the funny stuff and also the jokes that the Ukrainians have been giving out ever since day one. They've been going at it ever since, and they've never dropped off in energy. But I do miss the old guys too. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat from Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $5 super chat this time. It says, check Nixon White House uniforms, and he gives a pretty lengthy URL.
Let's see, Nixon White House uniforms. I know which ones you're talking about right here. Oh goodness, it was a decent attempt, but it was just too gaudy for me. I don't like him.
Oh.
Also, this is speaking of which, Chip, you're probably throwing this in when we're talking about Putin viewing himself as the new czar. This was Nixon trying to get up there into the, I guess you could say, imperial area as well. You know, more like a great leader or so. And it was with these kinds of uniforms. I gotta say, this was probably this is the ugliest design I've ever seen. I mean, they could have made so much of a better uniform, but they didn't. I'm just really blown away by it. But with that,
bad.
I mean, it's ugly. It's just hideous. I don't like it at all. But with that, I thank you so much for the support and also letting us take a look at these, because these are hideous. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Badger Resistance, who says President Zelensky lent support to the United 24 online campaign to solicit donations to build 100 of the naval drones that cost about $250,000 a piece.
And thank you so much for the support and sharing that information with us. And I gotta say, United 24 is an incredible organization. We have a link down in the description below if you would like to go support them, because they are pretty much Ukraine's direct fund to their government. And so if you want to support the Ukrainian government in their operations continuing to fight this war, that is the place to go. And they've been doing a lot of incredible work. Not only that, but many other things all around Ukraine and on the front lines to keep this war going. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you for sharing that really cool story with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Chip Kerwan once again. He says, for OPSEC, neither admit nor deny, but recognize again when Operator Starsky doesn't post for 5 days, massive Ukraine victories follow.
And thank you so much for the support, Chip. And I usually don't see that trend. Usually he posts weekly, but that may be the case. I'm not exactly sure. But with that, thank you so much for the support, Chip. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much for sending in support a decent amount tonight. You've sent in like, what, 5 or 6 super chats?
I think so.
And helping this channel to keep on running, because it does mean a lot and helps us to keep the lights on and keep the wheels turning behind the scenes. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $25 super chat from John Wilkin. Actually, John Wicken. Sorry about that. He says, love the show, boys. Sorry I messed up on my very first ever live chat the other night. I figured it out. The onions are out here on Watson Avenue, Ossining, New York.
And thank you for the support, John. And also, let's check out Ossining, New York. Where is this? Just north of New York. It's in New York State, but it's just north of New York. So let's take a look at this town. At the First Village Coffee. I'm going to get myself a coffee, ma. At the coffee store. Oh, nice town. I like this place. This is a really clean town. Wait, what's this here?
The delicatessen.
A delicatessen. Hey, ma, I'm going to go down the street to the delicatessen. What are you going to do down there? I'm going to get myself some meat. What do you think, huh? I'm just kidding around. But still, I like this town. It's a really nice looking one. It's really clean. It's well kept. Also, I like the little street lamps. This is a nice town, I gotta say. Thank you so much for sharing with us your hometown of Ossining, New York, and letting us take a look at where you live. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And also thank you so much for enjoying the show and supporting us so that way we can keep it running. Because without viewers like you, like I say almost every single time, it's not possible for us to run this stream and help to keep the lights on. So that way we can do this. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, big shout out to Junebug72, Mark, Andre, Brunette, and Benny for each putting in a $3 donation, but without a comment. But thank you for all three of your support, and we do appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Secular Sakai, who says, what are your predictions regarding the future of Moldova and Transnistria in the next 20 years after the war is over?
If Russia loses this war and then you start having internal power struggles, Transnistria will get stomped. They'll probably just get stomped by the Moldovans alone. The Ukrainians probably won't get involved. It'll be considered an internal affair for Moldovans only, but the Moldovan government will crush the Transnistrians once and for all, and Moldova will actually just be Moldova. There will be no quasi-Transnistrian government that controls the far east side of the country. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. I can't give an exact play-by-play over what the next 20 years would look like, but I do know that if the Russians lose this war and can't really power project at all, even inside of their own country, Transnistria will collapse. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Up next, big shout out to Seeker Gather and also Chris Webb for each saying thank you for the news and Slava.
And thank you to both of y'all so much for enjoying this news, and also Slava Ukraine. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you to both of y'all so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Matthew Drum, who says, your answer perfect.
And thank you so much for the support. I don't know why Matthew's microphone is cutting out every syllable, but I do thank you so much for enjoying this channel.
Lag.
I'm not really sure if it is, because it's...
Because you're cutting out too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's weird. I mean, let's check real quick. Let's check. It says our voice is connected quite well, and it's showing 24 ms. So I mean, like that's fairly good. So I don't know if that's really lag or not. But thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you so much for enjoying this channel and also supporting us, because it helps us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Nat, who says, first super, but had a question. What is the most common AK platform that you've seen being used from Springfield, Missouri, working at the Springfield Underground?
And thank you so much for the support, Nat, and also, congratulations on the first time supporting this channel. Of course, your support helps us to keep the thing running, and so thank you so much. Now, to answer the question, the most common AK platform we've seen is the AK-74, the normal infantry version, not the carbine version. And so, I guess that is just the brief answer to that question. It would certainly be the AK-74 on all sides. And also, let's see, from Springfield, Missouri, working at the Springfield Underground. The Springfield Underground. It's the cheese warehouse!
Oh!
Oh, crap! That's incredible!
Hey! That's the cheese video.
This is the government cheese video! What, you've made my day, Nat. You really have. This is amazing. It's all come full circle. We're back at the government cheese.
You know what this looks like?
What does it look like?
It looks like, you know, the cartels have like the underground like warehouses for the drug dens and stuff like that. That's what it looks like, the distribution center.
It kind of does. I'm not going to lie. It really does. But this is nuts. I can't believe this. Like, I think if I'm correct, these are the cheese drums.
Is that cheese in there?
Yeah, I think it is. That is amazing. I can't believe that we actually have someone on stream that is in the caves that I was talking about on the government cheese video. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I know it sounds cheesy, but I thank you so much for being in the place that I was talking about in the government cheese video. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support. And also, speaking of Springfield, Springfield is also a gun company. And I wanted to show y'all this one gun because I think it's a cool one. And maybe y'all agree with me. Handguns, the SA-35 series. I like these. It kind of calls back to the older gun styles of years gone by. It's not really a 1911. It's also not a Browning high power. But you can tell that it has a lot of inspiration of older gun designs. And for that reason, I like it. Of course, here's one thing that I always get a good laugh out of. Every time you ever see a gun video, they've always got to be wearing these, like, reflective glasses that have some kind of blue or orange tint to them. I don't know why. But that's always, like, the typical marketing strategy. Also a baseball cap. Like, I don't know why you can't just not wear a baseball cap and just some normal glasses or some normal sunglasses and shoot these guns. For some reason, it's always the same look. I don't know why.
He looks like he's about to break out and say, "Damn, son, where'd you find this?"
Andy has been chomping at the bits to do that since yesterday.
Have y'all seen that meme, by the way, or is it just totally out of context?
I don't think many of them have, to be honest with you. But
Probably not. There's like Matt's being wild again.
1 second. I bet you this kind of has some kind of electric guitar riff in the very opening of the ad. Let's hear it.
It's had many names in its century-old history. Today,
Damn, son.
we reimagine this renowned design for modern use. Call it a legend. Call it an icon. But whatever you do...
Why does this guy sound like discount Steven Seagal?
Yeah, he sounds like he's trying too hard to sound tough.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest with y'all. I don't really get the whole tough man shtick with selling guns. I mean, it's just a gun, you know. Just be like, hey guys, like, have y'all ever realized that back in the '80s, all the ads used to be like that? It's like, hey guys, you want a truck? I mean, like, this truck's got like 400 horsepower and a load of torque. Look, we'll pull some logs down the road. Gee, look how strong it is and powerful. And if you want that kind of pulling power and torque, the truck's yours. Like, it was just sold like that. Nowadays, whenever you see a truck, it's the ultimate of manpower. It's got to be sold like that every time. I mean, like, come on. Like, I don't know. It's appealing to emotions more so than the performance. I'm not really into these kinds of marketing strategies. Anyways, with that, we're moving on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Secular Sakai, who says, "Can we trade Hungary and Turkey for Ukraine and Georgia already in NATO? Getting tired of the strongman countries."
Oh, I hate to tell you, we can't get rid of anyone that's in NATO. Also, I'm not really into casting out allies, because while Hungary is going through a little bit of its own strongman phase, and Turkey isn't even going through a strongman phase, it's just doing what Turkey does. That's unexplainable. Like, I don't even know how to explain that. I still wouldn't want to see them go, because they are members of NATO. If we started booting out members, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the alliance? And it wouldn't send a good one. But with that,
also, by the way, Hungary said yesterday they would support Finland and Sweden into NATO.
oh, that's good. That's actually good to hear. And of course, they're already in their application process right now, so it's just a matter of going through the formalities and getting them in. So with that, I hope we addressed that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $9 super chat from Mr. E30. Also, really, really good era. The only good era of BMW, by the way. Thank you, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, for all you do. Greetings from Mora, Northern Ireland. K, and glory to Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. Of course, we have to find this mythical land of Moria in Northern Ireland. Let's see, here we go. The spotted giraffe. Interesting. Where is this in Northern Ireland? Okay, so it's near that lake that I can never pronounce, that I've tried to pronounce before, and I've just given up on it. Because I'm into British geography, I've always tried to figure out how to pronounce that. I think it's like Launay, if I'm correct, but I'm still not really sure. But with that, let's go down here and take a look at this little town. Let's drop down here at the Centra gas station. And it's got, wow, the competitor gas
Circle K?
Circle K?
You're kidding me.
That is cool.
In Ireland?
Yeah, in Ireland, of all places. Now, where's
That's wild.
Now, where's the Provo sniper? Where in the world T?
Where's the you know the type folks that like to hang outside of Circle K, the crackhead type?
Yeah, where are they?
Where are they?
But let's move on down the street. They got British flags flying all around over here. I'm supposing that this is the Ulster part of Northern Ireland. Yep, there it is. There's the Ulster flag, I believe. If I'm correct, I might be wrong. Northern Ireland's a really yeah, it's Ulsterland. There's the Ulster flag. That is the Ulster flag. So this is Ulsterland here. These are the Protestant Northern Irish, and this is where most of the fighting happens. I guess you could say is in the Ulsterlands of Northern Ireland. It's a really interesting history. Not getting into it on stream. It's a very complex and interesting one, but still, I like the town. It's actually not that bad looking. I've always been led to believe that Northern Ireland is like Britain's free-for-all melee zone, and it looks like it's actually quite a nice place. And also, it's really cool to hear you're from there as well. And so with that, thank you so much for the support and allowing us to take a look at your hometown of Moria. Moria, I don't know which way it's pronounced, but I thank you so much for allowing us to take a look at your hometown. And it's a really cool place. And so with that, thank you once again. Thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I saw Elite GP say, Circle K is high-end around here. Well, I'll tell you in Alabama, Circle K is not high-end. Plenty of jokes running around about that. Like, it is not. That's where you go if you want to get robbed.
Circle K is bottom of the rung here in Alabama. Like, it's the last place you'd want to go. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, Kaltenberg is standing outside of a Circle K right now, smoking a cigarette. So, Kaltenberg, you're the exception. You're not the crackhead outside of Circle K. But anyways, up next and for our final super chat, we have a $2 donation from CA Lags, who says Putin has no honor to guard. So I guess you could call him the dishonor guard.
Ooh, that's a burn.
I added that last part, by the way. That was a burn.
Oh, I thought that came from him. I was like, that was genius. And also, thank you for the support. And he doesn't have any honored guard. I don't even know why they call it an honor guard. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And Matthew threw in a whammy on your super chat right there and added to it a whole load. So with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And we have one more super chat, this time from Zyper Sniper 1 once again, who throws in a $5 donation and says, I've heard that Finland and Estonia is building a wall and bunkers near the Russian border.
And I have heard something similar, but not quite. But I can't really confirm it because I've never been able to find picture or video evidence of it, sadly. But I do thank you so much for the support, Cyber Sniper, because if we can find news on that, we will report on it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, so moving on to our live chat questions, we have one from Hokey Redneck, who says, do you think Ukraine will eventually move into Russia?
I don't think they will. I think they'll retake all their lands and stop right at their pre-2014 borders. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And we do have another super chat, this time from Walter A. Lakota Jr. once more, who throws in a $20 donation and says, me again. Fun fact, in the movie Pearl Harbor, the temple that's shown is called the Byodu Temple in Temple Valley, which is an exact replica in Osaka, Japan.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that. Also, are you talking about the modern Pearl Harbor movie, or are you talking about Tora Tora Tora? Because I always get, those are always like confused in my head. But moving on from that, let's see Temple Valley in Hawaii. Temple Valley, Hawaii. We want to find Temple Valley, Hawaii. So let's see here. It's like we're close. I think it's one of these. Let's see, where in the world is this even? It's on Oahu. Or as Matthew would call it, Oahu or something. Or
Oahu.
Well, let's see here. Let's see if we can find some pictures. Oh, here it is. Wow, that's really nice.
Wow.
That's nice. I like that. And
That is pretty nice.
And they got the Buddha. They got the Buddha. But with that, thank you so much for supporting and sharing that with us, because I didn't know that. And this is probably one of the weirdest and most interesting things I've seen in Hawaii. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running again, Walter.
All right, so up next, we do have our Morse code decoders of the stream, Draconia, CFA, WFTU, BME, and Mark Hodges. And they figured out the code. They say, it says, Ukraine will stop advancing when the war is won.
Y'all are correct, both in the statement and in the decryption. Ukraine will continue to advance until this war is over. I don't think they're really going to be stopping anymore. There will always be some kind of continuous movement somewhere on the front lines. It may shift from place to place, but they're not stopping anymore. And so with that, I thank you so much to all of y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again, and are always doing that every single day. And with that, we are in the live chats, aren't we?
Yes, we are, but actually we have one more super chat to address. She throws in a $3 donation. Yes?
You cut out there. Go ahead.
I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if it's a connection issue or what. But we have a $3 super chat from Dave Oz, who says, when you were in the UK, did you go to Welsh Town, Leland Fair, Wellbeing, I don't know.
Lenfire. I didn't. It's right here though. But we didn't go to it, sadly. We went to McDonald's. Hang on, everyone.
Why'd you say it like that?
What do you
We
mean?
went to McDonald's.
We went to McDonald's.
I'm here in my garage with my Lamborghini.
But you know what's better than McDonald's? Knowledge.
That's why I bought all these books. Excuse me, that's why I rented all these books, and that's why I rented this Lamborghini.
Trying to take a look at this. Oh my god!
Oh, that looks pretty good.
That looks good. It looks like deer
Crisp.
droppings on top of it, though. Oh my god, dude, man, the British. Why in the world does the British have to get everything better than us?
They've got a piece of oak sticking out of that cone.
The ice cream machine actually works over there.
It's a Galaxy McFlurry.
That's pretty cool. I've never heard of that. What else do they have? Man, the British piss me off with how they get American fast food chains and they do fast food over there better than they do here. Like, we just get, like, schlop in America. Y'all get, like, gourmet little coffees. I mean, like, this is like Starbucks coffee, pretty much, and how it's, like, dressed up. We don't get that. It's humiliating, really. Anyways, moving on from that. We went through North Wales. I think the closest we got to the Caernarfon area, kind of in that area, would be Bedglurt. And if I can find that, I will show it. I think it would just be better to type it in. Bedglurt in Caernarfon in the UK. There it is, right here. We went to this town, and it was a beautiful town. Really cool place. Very small town, though. And we can drop down here and check it out. And we thought it wouldn't be that crowded, but it was crowded. We actually stopped here at this ice cream parlor to ask for directions to the nearest gas station. And then we went further down this road and we checked out the town. It was a beautiful place. I really loved it.
That's where somebody told us about a chemist, I think.
Yeah, this was where someone told us about a chemist. And then we drove all the way to the town of Port My Dog, which is actually pronounced Port My Dog or something similar. And then we went to the gas station. It was where is it? Somewhere around here. No, it wasn't. Wait a minute, hang on.
Oh, and we're running really late on time. Also, Enforcer.
We are. And sadly, I won't be able to find the gas station that I'm talking about. Wait, no, I found it. Right here. Remember after we pulled over the gas station, that little narrow gauge train came out right here and started moving down the road. And we were like, what in the world? Like, it was really cool. It was a really cool place. But with that, we didn't get there, sadly. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope we answered that question fairly well. And due to time constraints, we're only going to be able to answer about 3 questions from the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so real quick, we do have a $2 super chat from Nat, who said, I added a short video of the cave on Discord General Media.
Can you say that again? You broke up.
Nat says, I added a short video of the cave on Discord General Media.
And thank you for sharing the video of the cave, and we will try and take a look at it after stream. And so with that, we are on to the first question.
All right, so the first one goes to Vanilla RPG Soundtracks, who said, did Russia adopt China's social credit system, and is this their way of building those credits?
Just in case if anyone doesn't know, China does not have a social credit system yet. It was proposed and then it was shot down, but they don't actually have one. I don't think the Russians have one either, but I don't know. I mean, like, you know, everyone heard about that idea, and it seems like everyone started to hop on the bandwagon that might be something feasible. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Roderick Thomas, who says, did you see the captured Russians in civilian clothes?
We did. We actually covered that a little bit earlier on in stream. We actually saw a couple of them. It showed them on video. Also, Matthew, by the way, it's a problem with your microphone because now that you're eating your microphone, there are no issues with hearing you anymore. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Mad Machine, who says, is it possible that Russia leave hidden saboteurs behind?
Maybe, but then again, a lot of Ukrainian citizens will probably rat these guys out because they'll know who they are, you know, and they, of course, will probably have some kind of a Russian dialect or an accent. So they probably did try to leave some behind, but they're probably going to be found very quickly due to very obvious reasons, like them not being Ukrainian and also them not being familiar to anyone they're around. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. 3 hours and 31 minutes in, this stream is coming to a close. I thank you all so much once again for watching. If you did enjoy tonight's stream, please make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe, because these streams run every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. And so, of course, thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine and also to run the Sunday fundraiser. Good night, everyone. Take care, and I'll see y'all then. And also, Slava Ukraini!
Yes.
The Lviv Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що